Hello, hello, hello. Still not, let me see. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Monday. We'll give a couple of minutes. Let's get set up. See if anybody else gonna come join the party. Y'all wonder what I'm doing. Usually I have my little heading thing up there where I can see my time and how long I'm going, but for some reason it's not displaying that. So I have to play it by ear. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Since this is a part 2, we're gonna have a little bit of a review anyway from part 1, just in case you missed it. So hello, how's everybody doing? Hope y'all are having a wonderful evening. This is Brother John Stewart on behalf of the Lost Sheep Ministry, and I'm here to bring the second part of this lesson that we started a week ago. Are you willing to act the fool for the Lord? Man, it was. I just thank God so much for giving me that lesson. It was such a blessing that He gave me that, and and of course we covered some things. We started off. We was talking about. I start off with 2 Samuel chapter 6 verses 12 through 23, and the situation. How you doing, Sister Rhonda? Glad you made it in here. And the situation was, I'm just going through the review before we start on tonight's lesson. So when I started off, we was in 2 Samuel chapter 6 verses 12 through 23, and the situation was Israel. This is back in Kings. First when David first took over, got established as the king over all Israel, and one of the first things he wanted to do was bring God back into the kingdom. And of course God. This Ark of the Covenant that they had back then was kind of representative of God to them. It was like it was the place where Moses met with God, so it was representative of God. So for them not to have that was kind of symbolizing that God was with them. So basically, long story short, he makes his way. He tried to do it once, it didn't work out. Some guys a couple of priests end up dying, and then because they weren't doing it right. Then the second time they was able to bring it home. And on the way home, he was so overjoyed that the fact that God was coming back in his life, he was, basically stripped down and had on like this silk robe kind of thing, that of course, was a little bit of revealing. And he was basically just jumping around and dancing around like a fool. And his wife, who was the daughter of the man who he took over the kingdom from, saw him, and she and it says, when we read through our lesson, she despised him in her heart. And she kind of went and approached him and basically said, you look like a fool out there. And David, he replied yes, I did look like a fool. And I'm even more prepared to look even more of a fool, for the Lord. Cause what I was doing it for the Lord. So basically he's saying, yes, I look like a fool, but I was doing it for the Lord. So I don't care what you think, kind of thing. And we kind of discuss why did she get so upset by him dancing around like he was, saying he, the way she confronted him and said he looked like a fool. And it's because David was of the spirit. He was a spiritual man. He was in tune with God, and she wasn't. So she was upset that he was doing something for God. You know what I'm saying? And she said, no, he looked like a fool because he was out there dancing around because he was of his joy for the Lord. And that's what we kind of talked about. That's where this lesson comes from. And I told you that when the world see you doing godly things, it looks foolish to the world. And Paul tells us this. I read you some scripture from Paul, but I'm not going to read through everything. I'm just doing a review. But over in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18, he says, I know very well how foolish the message of the cross sounds to those who are on the road to destruction. In other words, to unsaved people, the things that we do for God is foolish. And you got to understand that. And he also mentions again down in verse 25, he kind of reinstates that. He says, this foolish plan of God is far wiser than the wisest human plans, and God's weakness is far stronger than the greatest of human strength. So that's why I titled the lesson, Are You Willing to Act the Fool for the Lord? Because if you really think about it, when you really look at it, to really serve the Lord, especially in today's time, with the way the society is going today and the things that we praise today, we praise in our society today, we praise evil. We praise the bad. If you're doing bad, you can get ahead, but if you're doing good, nobody wants to hear about you. So, you know what I'm saying? So in the society today, for you to do something for God is foolish. And if you really look at it, if you really want to truly be a servant of the Lord, most of the stuff we do to serve the Lord, it looks foolish. I mean, it is foolish in the eyes of the world. Everything we do is foolish. But like we saw, as we went through the examples last week, we see, yes, it's foolish to the world, but to a spiritual person and to God, it's not foolish. It's you giving your heart to God. And of course, I had some examples that we went through last week. I had 5 we went through last week, and I'm going to finish up tonight with the 5 we go through tonight. So, number 1 that we went through last week, are you are you willing to follow God's will? And we just talked about how foolish it is to follow God's will, because a lot of times he's going to take you to a place you don't want to be, and he's going to have you doing things you don't want to do in a situation that you're not comfortable with. So, and really, to follow God's will, following God's will is all about really getting out of your comfort zone. You know what I'm saying? And again, if you're doing something for some magical wizard in the sky, that's foolish to the world, because that's how they perceive it, because they don't really believe in the Lord. So for you to give up all give up everything you have and everything. What up, Anthony? I'm glad you can make it in tonight. That's a blessing, brother, to have you here. We're just going through the review from last week. So I'm glad you made it in. So if you're willing to give up everything you have, and of course we looked at Abraham and we saw what Abraham, the Lord called, where he was Abram at the time, and he basically called him, he was an old man, 75 years old, and God told him, hey, pick up everything you own and move to a place. He didn't even tell him the destination he was going, and he said, just move to this place, get away from your family, go off by yourself, go to this place you've never been before, around people you've never been around before, and I'm gonna bless you because of it. And of course, Abram did that, and we know what happened. That's what the nation of Israel came from him. And then we got to understand too, when he told them that, he didn't even give no timetable. He just said, take up everything you own, go to a foreign land that you've never been to, and I'm gonna give you that land eventually. And that's basically what he said, eventually. And of course, we know, if you know your Bible, it took about almost a little bit over 500 years before that promise of God came true to Abram. So for Abram to just off on a whim, take up and follow that rule, that's foolish. But again, to the world, it's foolish. But to God, there was a man of faith. And as a matter of fact, when he talks about Abram, he said because of his faith, God found him righteous. What's going on, Daniel? Glad you can make it in here tonight. He said because of his faith that he was made righteous, because he had enough faith in God. He was foolish enough to just take up everything he had and move to a place just because God said do it, because he followed God's will. So that was number 1 from last week. Number 2 from last week, are you willing to spend time in God's word every day? And again, to the world, that's foolish. Why are you spending time in this 2,000-year-old book that ain't even relevant to what's going on today? But yeah, and it's fun that people say that, but yeah, you see like this war going on right now and all this stuff that's happening around this pandemic and all this stuff. And people say we foolish for spending time in our Bible every day, but yet the Bible said everything that's going on today, it was going to happen. It said it was going to happen. This was written 2,000 years ago. So to the world, for us to spend time in our world is spend time in the word is foolish. But again, to God and to a person of God, we'll know that's the best way that you can build your relationship with God. And the example that we looked at last week, we saw Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Jesus, when of course we know when he was born, and they showed a little bit of his childhood, and when he was about 12 years old, they showed him in a situation where he left his parents and went off to the temple to preach for a few days, and then after that we don't see him for about good 18 years, and so he pops back up over in Matthew chapter 4, where he's baptized by John. And of course, after he's baptized, the Holy Spirit descends on him like a dove. And then you hear the heavens open up and say, "This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased." And then, but right after that happened, he got taken to the desert for 40 days, 40 nights, didn't eat nothing, and got tempted of the devil. And then the devil came and tried to tempt him, after 40 days and 40 nights. And what did he do to defend himself? He used the word of God. The devil's like, won't you turn these stones to loaves of bread? And then Jesus was like, well, the Bible says that you need more than bread for your life. And then the devil tried to use the Bible against him. He said, well, took him up to a high point on the temple, said, well, won't you jump down? Because the Bible say that the Lord will send his angel to protect you. But then he said, yeah, but the Bible also say, don't tempt the Lord thy God. And then the third time he went and he took him and showed him the whole world in a flash, so to speak, and said, if you just bow down to me, I will give all this to you. And then, of course, Jesus hit him with another third verse and said, but it says you can't serve, you should only love the Lord thy God with all thy heart. You know what I'm saying? Not, and of course, he was saying you can't put your faith in money or whatever. But each time the devil tried to tempt him, he used the word of God to defend himself. So that's why it's so important. So again, to an unbeliever, spending time reading this old 2,000-year-old book and not reading the latest 50 Shades of Grey book or the latest romance novel or whatever is stupid. But to a person of God to understand the power in these words, we'll know that's about one of the most productive things you'll do. So again, number two was, are you willing to spend time in God's word every day? Because again, that looks foolish to an unsaved person, but to a person that's saved, we'll know that's the best way to spend your time on this earth. Number 3 from last week, are you willing to pray without ceasing? Are you willing, no matter what's going on in your life, to pray without ceasing? Because again, praying, you think the act of praying is foolish. You know what I'm saying? You just, go somewhere and close your eyes and talk, and you hoping there's some dude in the sky listen to you. And again, that's the way people are presented. There's some magical sky wizards up there waiting to give you your request. To the world, that's how they perceive it. So it sounds foolish. But in reality, we know that that's the best way. That's a direct prayer. It's direct communication to the heart of God. It's direct communication to God. Matter of fact, when Jesus died, the veil in the temple was split wide open because Jesus made it for us to go to God ourselves. We don't have to go through a mediator like some religions believe. We can go to God ourselves. You know what I'm saying? No matter where we at, no matter what we doing, we can take a moment and go to God. We can be walking down the street and go to God. But again, to the world, for you to be spending time, hours a week, like I said, I spend at least an hour and a half at least, but most likely I spend somewhere between an hour and a half to 2-3 hours a week in prayer, because not only my personal prayer, but praying for other people. So I spend a lot of time in prayer, and to the world, they be like, that's foolish to spend all that time praying, reaching out to some sky wizards first to get some wishes granted. But again, as a saved man, as somebody that has seen the power of prayer, I was at home yesterday, saw the power of prayer. You know what I'm saying? Understanding the power of prayer, that shows you that it works. You know what I'm saying? As a person that's saved, and a person that has seen his prayers been answered, knows that that's one of the most powerful things that you have that can get in touch with God is through your prayer. So number 3 was, are you willing to pray without ceasing? And of course, we looked at the example last week where Daniel, something that he did all the time, every day, he prayed every day, 3 times a day, toward the east. And some guys were jealous of him because of his position of power, and they were trying to find some faults with him. And he was so faithful in everything he did, they couldn't find a fault with him. So they figured the only way they were going to get him in trouble was through his religion, because they knew he prayed all the time. He always prayed without ceasing. So of course they went and tricked the king and got the king to write a decree that anybody that prays to anybody other than him was going to get thrown in the lions den. And Daniel knew this. He didn't, it ain't like he just heard a rumor, maybe this happened. He knew that if he prayed to anybody outside the king, that he was going to get thrown in the lions den, and yet he wouldn't have prayed anyway. So again, to an unsaved person, that's foolish. You know that you're going to die. You're going to pray anyway. But to that man of God, he knew that was the only way to truly protect himself. And what happened? He went home and prayed. The guy saw him praying. When it snitched on him, the king came, threw him in the lions den. But what happened? Nothing happened to him. Went spent the night in the lion's den, probably, I imagine him laying in the lion's den, got his foot cocked up on one line, and his head laid on another line, just comfortable. And then, you know what I'm saying, the king came the next morning, realized that the lions didn't touch him. You know, even the king himself, and when he threw him in there, to show you how faithful Daniel was, that when the king threw him in there, he said, you know, he was the king, first of all, tried to find a way out. He couldn't find a way out. So then when the king threw him in there, he said, your God, he said, you know, your God whom you serve continually. In other words, the person that you praying to all the time, the person that you talking about all the time, he's going to protect you. It's basically what the king said. And of course, the king went home. He fasted all night. He didn't eat, drink, do none of his usual nighttime activities. And the first thing, as soon as the sun was up, he went back and made sure Daniel was alive and called in and said, no, Daniel, no, did your God whom you serve continually save you? And Daniel's got like, long live the king. He said, my God found me innocent in his eyes. Why? Because he prayed without ceasing. He said he found me innocent in his eyes, and he shut up the mouths of the lions, and they didn't harm me. So when that happened, the king went and got the people that accused Daniel and threw them into the lion's den. And it said before their bodies even touched the ground, the lions ripped them apart. You see what I'm saying? Why? Because he was faithful in his prayers. You know what I'm saying? He didn't only pray when he needed something like most of us do, or he didn't only go to God when the trouble came like most of us do. He prayed every day. You know what I'm saying? He prayed every day. So when they said that they weren't going to be praying like, well, y'all can do what y'all want to do, I'm still going to do what I'm doing, because he was praying without ceasing. So that was number 3. Are you willing to pray without ceasing? Because again, to the world, they look foolish. To everybody else, I'm pretty sure they're like, man, this dude dumb. He know he's about to get thrown in the lion's den, but he gonna pray anyway. But he did what he knew God wanted him to do. And look what happened. The Lord showed up and protected him from the lions. So number 4 from last week, and this is all just a review. Are you willing to go soul winning? Are you willing to go soul winning? Because again, we talked about how foolish that is. How foolish going out and just randomly knocking on people's doors, asking them if they know about the Lord. You know, I was talking to my brother yesterday. He's like, man, that bothers me that you do that. Like, I'm worried about you. And I said, bro, I'm the safest. I know I'm the safest I ever feel when I'm out there soul winning, because I know I'm exactly where God want me at, doing exactly what God want me to be doing. You know what I'm saying? But to a worldly person, that seems foolish. You know what I'm saying? Me and him was talking about it. He said, man, you know, I was like, bro, I'm telling you. You know, and my brother is saved, but he's I'm trying to get him back in the word, but you know, he got to want to get back in it. But like I said, to a worldly person, that is foolish for you to take that chance. Cause he even says that, man, you don't know what's behind that door. I said, I don't know what's behind that door, but that's what I'm trying to find out. That's why I'm not. Because 9 times out of 10, the world think, oh, it's something negative behind that door. You know, it's something bad behind that door. What my thinking is, it might be somebody that need to hear the word of God behind that door. So it's foolish for me to take my service, go out, and I don't just soul win right in my area neither. I go all over the place. So everywhere I go, I don't usually go anywhere within 30 to 40 minutes of my house. So most of the places I travel when I go soul win is at least an hour away. You know what I'm saying? So I'm taking an hour there, an hour back, not to mention an hour and a half, 2 hours I'm out knocking on doors. That's a good 4 hours out of my Saturday, my day, my one day off, one of my 2 days off, to go out and knock on people's doors that ain't even looking to hear about the Lord. You know what I'm saying? What up, Pat? Glad you can join me, man. So again, to the world, it's foolish, but to a person that knows God, the person that understands the will of God, that you know, that's, again, I think soul winning is about the most productive thing a human being can do. If you really want to be successful in your life, the most productive thing you can do is go out and tell somebody else about the Jesus Christ. That tops even praying, and not that you don't need to pray, but that, to me, that tops praying and reading your Bible and everything. Of course, you still need to do those things, but when you get out and go out, you know the Lord, and you can go out and tell somebody else about the Lord, man, that's one of the most first thing. What up, Nikki? How you doing? I can recognize that picture there. I'm glad you're here too. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I'm talking about soul winning, and 2 of the people on here are results of me going out knocking on doors. That's why they're here now, Nick and Anthony. So that's why I say soul winning is so important. If you've ever done it and you understand the benefit of it and the way it can change a person's life, you showing up that day, it's imperative that, and how imperative it is that you do it as a servant of God. It's not foolish, but again, to the world, it's foolish. And we even saw we looked at Jonah when we was looking over soul winning, and we saw how Jonah even thought it was foolish. Because the Lord told him to go soul winning in this city called Nineveh. Told him to go there, and he knew Nineveh was a horrible city. Nineveh was like Memphis or Chicago, or matter of fact, it was probably like Memphis, Chicago, and California all combined. You know, that's how bad it was. So Jonah didn't want to go there, man. That's foolish. I'm not going down there with these violent, these criminals. I'm not going. It's pointless. And he tried to run from the Lord. And what happened? The Lord had to spank his butt. You know what I'm saying? Because sent a storm by, and they got so violent that they thought all the sailors and the captain, they thought they were going to die. And he told them, like, man, y'all, he said, it's my fault. I'm running from God. God told me to go soul winning. I didn't want to do it. So I tell you what, you throw me over the board, then I guarantee the storm will stop. And the guys, they were like, well, here, man, of God, we don't want to do that. They tried to do everything they can, but they saw that storm wasn't letting up. So finally they threw him overboard. And then y'all know the story. The whale, I don't want to do the joke. I'm just reviewing. But the whale came and swallowed him up. And of course, he was in the whale for 3 days and 3 nights. Then the whale spit him out. And he ran to Nineveh, and he got there and preached, and the entire city, even the animals, got saved. 120,000 people. You know what I'm saying? A city that the Lord was going to destroy in 40 days ended up being saved. And then you got to think about all the people, those 3-4 days that he was gone, that he should have been there, that he wasn't. All the people that died in that time, they could have got saved, that died and ended up having to go to hell because he was sitting there being foolish himself by not doing what the Lord told him to do. So again, soul winning to an unsaved person, to somebody that's never benefited from soul winning, somebody that never saw how important soul winning is foolish when you really think about it. Again, you go randomly knock on a door, you know what I'm saying? I'm telling y'all, I've been to some places, man. I've been to trailers in the middle of woods and no lights around, right at dark. You know what I'm saying? I think I told y'all one time I went into a knock on the door, and this guy was a neo-Nazi. You know what I'm saying? Got the swastikas and all that stuff all over his walls. And I ended up leading to the Lord was the crazy part. So that's why I know how important it is, because I've done it. I've done it for years now, and I've seen the impact it can have on people's lives. Like I said, the majority of the people that's watching now is from results of me going out and knocking on doors. So I know how important it is, but to the world, it's a foolish thing to do. But see, that's something you have to do if you really want to show the Lord that you want to serve. If you really want to serve the Lord, you're going to have to look foolish. And then the last one we covered last week, and then I'll get into the 5 for this week. Are you willing to put your faith in the bigness of God in front of the world? Are you willing to show the world how big your God is? You know what I'm saying? Do you have enough faith and confidence in God that when you put you in a situation that he's going to show up? You know what I'm saying? And we had the situation that we looked at with Elijah. You know, of course, all the prophets of the Lord had been killed, you know, except for him. He was the last one. And they started worshiping Baal and all these other gods. So, in the story, it hadn't been raining for like 3 years. So they was in a famine. The land was dry. Of course, cattle was dying. They didn't have anything, barely had anything to eat, barely had any water left. And finally, the Lord told Elijah to present himself, which he did. And he challenged all these other priests of this false religion to a contest. And he basically said, what we're going to do is we're going to take our sacrifice. You're going to cut yours up. I'm going to cut mine up. We're going to put it on the pile of wood, but we're not going to put no fire to it. Now, again, this is all stuff I talked about. So everything I'm talking about now, I talked about last week. So y'all want to get the good details in it, you got to go back and watch last week's video. But, basically, you got to know, in order to have a fire, you got to have 3 things you have to have for a fire. You got to have the ignition source, or the flame. You got to have the fuel, which is the wood, and you got to have the air. You know what I'm saying? That the fire has to be able to breathe. If you take any one of those things away, a fire cannot exist. So for this man to say, we're going to have a contest and we're going to see who can start a fire without fire, that is foolish. And I'm pretty sure if y'all remember when I went through it, when he brought it up, the other guy like, oh yeah, let's do that. Cause they do like, man, this dude's an idiot. Cause even if God didn't show up, his God won't show up neither, cause it's impossible to do something like that. And so, you know what I'm saying? He based him into this contest. And not only does he say, we're going to start a fire without fire, when he set up his altar, he took water, which they didn't have. They didn't have any water because it hadn't rained in 3 years. He took a little bit of water they had left and poured it on the wood. So again, you're not going to be able to start no fire with wet wood and no fire. You know what I'm saying? So again, they thought this dude was being the biggest fool and they were going to show him up. But what happened? Because of his faith, because he was a man of God, because he had seen God work in his life, he knew that when he called on God, God was going to show up and show out. And that's exactly what happened. You know, and the other guys, they did theirs, nothing happened. They started cutting themselves and doing all kind of weird chants. And then toward the end, in the evening, he's like, all right, y'all had enough. It's my turn. And he, like I said, he set his altar up, put the wood on there, put the sacrifice on there, and pour water on it 3 times, and then called to God. And what happened? The flame came from heaven, and it said it ate it lapped up the water that was in the ditch. It lapped up the wood, the bricks, the dust. I mean, it pretty much disintegrated everything. You know what I'm saying? Because he had enough faith that he was willing to look foolish before God. Because you got to think about it. What if God not did that? You know what I'm saying? He would have looked like a darn fool. They would have laughed him out of town. But he had enough faith in his God to know that he was able to trust in the bigness of God, and he knew that God was going to show up and show out because he had the faith to do so. So do we have the faith to do the same thing? Do we have a faith to be willing to look like a fool before God? You know what I'm saying? I tell y'all all the time when I do these videos, now this is a pretty big crowd. Tonight is only 5. I see that I can see it. I know some people don't actually check in. So that's a huge crowd for me. You know, but most times, man, it seems like I'm foolish for sitting here spending 2-3 hours on here just either talking to the same person or sometimes even talking. I've had video where I was the only one on here. That seems foolish. But to the world, but to a person of God, you understand that God work does not return void. I actually got a cool story I got to share with y'all. I don't know the complete details, and Sister Wanda, I don't know if you heard it. I don't know if Brother John said anything about it in church Sunday. But I was in Memphis yesterday, and I get a call from my pastor. And turns out, basically, long story short, there's this other guy that goes out truck. He's really big into soul winning. He's really big into soul winning. And he drives trucks, so he's like all over the country. So he was over in Missouri, which I think he said where he was at. It wasn't too far from Memphis. I don't know exactly where he was at, but basically he was in Missouri, came by a guy that he found was unsaved. So he said he got to talking to the guy, and the guy was like, you must be one of those Bible thumpers. And the guy was like, well, no, I don't believe in Bible thump. I don't necessarily wouldn't say that, but I do believe in sharing the gospel of my God with those who need it. He said, the guy makes this statement, your name wouldn't have to be John Stewart with it. And when he said that, the truck driver like, I know. He said, but I do know a guy named John Stewart. Now you got to think about it. I'm in Waverly. He was in Missouri. And this guy just randomly says, your name wouldn't have to be John Stewart. And he's like, no. He said, but I know a guy named John Stewart that preaches on Facebook. He said, yeah, that's him. My wife been watching him, and she been trying to get me to watch him. And he had my name wrote down on a piece of paper from where his wife had been trying to get him to watch me because I was always talking about soul winning. So long story short, Brother Terry talked to the guy, and the guy ended up getting saved. And the guy called his wife, like, you wouldn't guess, who I'm talking to. I'm talking to a guy that goes to church with John Stewart. And Brother Terry told me, his wife replied, so are you saved yet? And he's like, nah, not yet. And this was before he got saved. He said, nah, not yet, but the guy's working on me. But Brother Terry said, he had to do a little bit of work, and he ended up getting the guy saved. And I know, they told me the last name was Lawless. I'm not exactly sure because they're not in my friends list, but what a blessing that is. You know what I'm saying? That's amazing. This guy's in Missouri, and somebody that, like I said, not even in my friends list that's been watching me and been telling her husband about me. And you know what I'm saying? And that's how God works. So you see, even though I don't get a big crowd, I might not get a whole lot of views. I know even if I get one view and that one view changes somebody's life, then it's worth it. You see what I'm saying? So again, to the world, man, you wasting your time spending your Monday night. You can be getting in bed. I got the lost sheep tomorrow, so this is going to be a long week for me. Whenever I had a lost sheep, it's just a long week. So I really need to get in bed early. But I'm going to sit here and give y'all the second half of this lesson because I know it might seem foolish to y'all, but there's somebody out there in this world that's dependent on me doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And the same for y'all. This world might tell you serving the Lord, reading your Bible, soul winning, all these things is foolish, but there's somebody right now out in this world that's dependent upon you doing just that so they can eventually get the gospel to them. So I'm going to go ahead. That was the introduction. Like I said, just a review from last week. We got 5 new points tonight that I'm going to go over and then finish this lesson up. So I'm going to go ahead and pray and I'm going to jump into it. Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your amazing grace, Lord. Thank you so much for your faithfulness to us, even when we're not faithful to you. I think about it all the time, all those years I was out there just running around, doing nothing for you, doing what I wanted to do, living the way I wanted to live, and you just sitting there being patient with me, Lord. So many times I could have been dead or in jail or end up hurting somebody or getting hurt myself, Lord, and you just sitting there patient. And when the time was right, Lord, you called me back to you and gave me the wisdom to accept that call. And because of that, Lord, I'm willing to act a fool like you. I know I've been acting a fool like you for you for the last 18 years. And just like David said, I'm willing to look even more like a fool if it's going to help people out there to come to know you, Lord. So I pray that you send your spirit down upon me as we go through this lesson tonight. Let your spirit guide this session and guide this lesson, Lord. Let it touch my heart and give me the wisdom I need so I can bring forth this truth that you revealed to me last year, Lord, and help me put this lesson together. And I pray you send your spirit upon the hearts of those that are listening, Lord. Help them be willing to listen, because I hope it don't be a long lesson, but I do want to get through these last 5 points, Lord. But I pray you help them see how important it is to be willing to look like a fool for you, because they only look like a fool to the world. And that's what they got to understand. They only look like a fool to the world. They're not looking like a fool to you, Lord. To you, it makes you, it's what we'll get. It's the thing that'll make you say, when you see us, well done, thy good and faithful servant. You know, the people that were so worried about their pride and look like a fool, they're the ones going to get up there and hear that, do get away from me, you doers of iniquity. So I just thank you so much for this lesson. Thank you for letting your spirit come upon my heart. Thank you for using this little ministry that I have, Lord. Thank you for giving me this ministry. And I pray it continue to grow and prosper, reach out to the community. But more importantly, tonight, I pray that the words tonight will touch the heart of someone and bring them under conviction and give them the want to look like a fool for you as well, just as I have. I thank you so much for everything. And I say this prayer in one of Son Jesus' name. Amen. See, I was like I told y'all earlier, I was down in Memphis and yesterday, Sunday, and I was upset because one of my favorite places to go is a corner store, and they sell sandwiches, and that's why I used to eat it, because the sandwiches was cheap, but I mean, it was nice. And I think now they made this thing called the Good Burger. It's called Roxy's Groceries on 3rd Street. You ever in Memphis, go check it out. It's called Roxy's Grocery. But they have a little store in the back that makes sandwiches and stuff. And they make this burger called the Good Burger. And I think it's been ranked like one of the top burgers in the nation. It's been in the newspaper and all kind of stuff. And I went there Sunday to get I don't get the burger, I get the smoked sausage. And it was cold. I was so upset. I still got me some Jack Purtles though. But I couldn't get my burger and I was so upset. But one of the guys that worked there, his parents that owned the store, was my coach. And this is something I learned, because that's what I'm trying to help y'all see. Don't look at things through your eyes or through the world's perspective. Look at it from God's perspective, because the world see what you're doing and they see it as foolish. But when God see what you're doing, he see you as a servant truly doing his work. And this coach actually taught me this. One of the lessons he taught me, and to this day I call him every time I go by to get the sandwich, but I go by to see him as well. Because what happened was, when I was I think I was about 8 or 9 years old. No, I was maybe about 10. But either way it go, we had a basketball team in the community center. Now I was more of a football player, but the thing that kept me out of trouble in North Memphis, I stayed busy. So football season, that's the fall. But then when it was over, it was nothing else. So what I would do, I had a sport for each season. So when football season was over, I would play basketball at the community center. And then when basketball season was over, I would actually do track in my school, my high school, shot put, and I actually ran a few laps. So anyway, so I would play basketball at the football season. And again, I wasn't a baller. Like, you know what I'm saying? And basically they put me in to do the fouling and whatnot. But the thing was, even though I didn't get in, I was the guy that even if we needed to foul, somebody to foul, I was the one he put in, or I was the guy that got in when there's 30 seconds left and we up by like 20, then like, all right, go and get in and run down the court a few times. I was that guy. But even though I was that guy, I never missed practice. I was the first one to practice, the last one to leave. I was always working on my shooting because I was horrible at shooting, and I was always just putting in the work. You know what I'm saying? But yet when the game come around, I never got in, but I never complained. I took my spot. I played my position. I got on the bench, and, if I got in, I got in. If I didn't get in, it was a close game. I didn't get in. I didn't get in. I didn't whine and complain. But all the other guys that was really the ballers, they was like, man, they didn't get their playing time. They was upset. Go put me in. They going up, putting on the shirt every 5 minutes, and then you don't put them in, they throw a fit and all that. So this one guy, he was like the LeBron of the team. So at the end of the season, they have like a sports banquet and they give out awards or whatever. So this was this coach's, his name was Coach Red Devil, Reggie Miller, but we call him Red Devil. It was his first year. So at the end of the season, he was like, I'm gonna give out trophies. So, you know what I'm saying? So we go into the gym, they had everything set up, and he got all these beautiful trophies lined up, and all the trophies was the regular trophy was about, I say about a foot tall, a foot and a half tall. But then he had one trophy for the MVP that was like 3 feet tall. So, of course, everybody wanted that one. Like, oh man, that's nice. So I ain't even thinking about it. I know it ain't no way in the world I'm going to get it. Cause I'm like, I barely even get any playing time. I think for the season, I think we played like 15 games. I might have had like 8 points for the whole season. So I'm not even thinking about it. So the guy that was like the best one on the team, he just know he popping his car like, oh yeah, that's mine. I already know I'm going to put that, blah, blah, blah. So the coach go through all the awards. I think I got like sportsmanship awards. So I did get a trophy. I got sportsmanship and everybody got their awards. So then the last one he gave out was the MVP. So then he started talking And he like, now this one here is for my MVP. He said, this is the person that worked the hardest. And you know what I'm saying? Even though you might not see it on the court, he's done more for this team than anybody. And he said, John Stewart, come on up here. And everybody's face just dropped like, and I was sitting there like, nah, he playing. He's like, John, get your butt on up here. And I end up getting the MVP trophy. And I still got this trophy to this day. It's about 3 feet tall. You know what I'm saying? I got the MVP that year. And it was because, and I asked, and I even asked, like, Cole, why did I get that trophy? He told me, he said, man, even though I never put you in, even though you didn't get a lot of playing time, you was always here for practice, you was always on time, you was early, and you put in the work, and you knew how to play your position. He said, that's what I was looking for. He said, that's what really makes a good teammate. That's what makes a person coachable. They's willing to just play their position. He said, you had no problem playing your position. He said, everybody else, they barely came to practice. They half-assed in practice when they did come, and they complained they get playing time. He said, that's not an MVP to me. He said, you are my MVP. So the point of that story is this. The coach who did not, like again, the other guys, there was some guy that was upset, like, man, you know, you wrong. You should get at the blah, blah. I'm like, man, look, it got my name on it. He gave it to me. I'm not the one that told him to give it to me. He gave it to me. So in other words, when the world looked at what I did nothing. You know what I'm saying? I had made no accomplishment. I didn't deserve the trophy. But when God looks at something, he look at the work you do, he'll know that you deserve all the awards you're going to get when you see him in heaven. You know what I'm saying? So the person that needed to see the work I was doing was the coach. And now the players, according to the players, I wasn't doing a darn thing. I was worthless on the team. But to the coach, I was his most valuable player. And that's what you got to understand. This world, when they see you doing God's work, they're going to look at you like you're worthless. Why are you wasting your time? Why even bother? But to God, he's like, this my boy, keep going. You know what I'm saying? Keep going. I got your back. You might not see it. You might not see the benefits now, but wait till you see your rewards at the end. And that's why I said when I got that trophy, and to this day I have this trophy. I got that over here in my room. I'm actually getting my place set up in my office to put it up. You know what I'm saying? About 3 feet tall, biggest trophy I ever got. You know what I'm saying? All because I was doing what I was supposed to do the entire time. Even though it looked foolish to the other guys, again, they used to make fun of me, you know what I'm saying, because I got into the last 30 seconds of the game, and I looked like a fool for working so hard and not being able to contribute. But again, the person that needed to see that work was the one that mattered. Was the coach. And when he saw, he said I was in MVP. And y'all got to understand, y'all got to take that and apply that to your life. That was a valuable lesson I learned. And that's why I work the way I do. That's why I got a lot of my work ethic. Because I know even if nobody else sees what I'm doing, even nobody else see how much energy I put into this ministry, if nobody else see how much time I dedicate to this ministry, how dedicated I am to this, I know God sees it. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's what you got to work. Anything you do, you can't work for man to get man praises and for man to see. You got to work like you're working for God himself. And that's always been my mentality, especially since that happened. And no, it has paid off. And I'm here where I am now. And I'm praying that I can pass that same principle on to you and you'll be willing to do the same thing. But you got to understand, to the world, it's going to look foolish. So let's get into this tonight. We got to know. So we stopped at number 5. Last week, again, you know, are you willing to put your faith in the beings of God? And we looked at Elijah. So number six is, we're going to be over in, Matthew. Matter of fact, we're going back to Matthew chapter 4. So let's, flip over to Matthew chapter 4. Let me find, I got them all here. And this was actually right after, you know, the example that I used for Jesus. It was a little bit later, down the road that this happened. So number 6 is this, and this is a big one. And when I put these together, I tried to put them in order of priority because I didn't know if I was hoping I was going to be able to get the whole thing done in church, but I knew I might possibly not be able to get them all done. But this right here, this is a big one. This is a big one, and I think this one right here is a lot of people that don't do work for God is because of this one right here. Number 6 is this: are you willing to give up worldly things because it interferes with you doing God's work? Are you willing to do that? Because to most people, that's foolish. You gonna give up your job? You know what I'm saying? Because when I go out soul winning, one of the excuses I get the most, because I always start off asking people, do they go to church anywhere? And I do that because you don't want to go straight into just like, hey, do you know Jesus? Because people think, hold on, y'all, I'm trying to unplug the charger. Give me 1 second. But you don't want to go straight in like when somebody the first thing you say to them, hey, do you know Jesus? They're like, it's so weird. It throws people off, and they're like, oh, one of those people, and they won't talk to you. But what I always like to ask first, are you going to church? And depending on how they answer that question, whether they go to church or not, it lets me know how to proceed as far as, you know, getting to talking, okay, are you saved? So, but one of the things I get the most when I ask that question, do you go to church? I'm pretty sure a majority of the time with people that don't go to church, the majority of the time, the excuse they give me, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I get it a lot. And I want to say at least 50% of the time, oh, I work on Sundays. Oh, I work a lot, so I don't get to go to church. Some I've learned, especially since serving, but being on this world, some wisdom the Lord has showed me, you know what I'm saying? I've learned to understand that a man or a woman is going to always make time to do what they really want to do. If you really want to go to church, you're going to go to church. If you really want to serve the Lord, you're going to serve. You're not going to let anything stop you from serving the Lord. So for them to say, oh, I got to work all the time, that's just their excuse they're using so they don't have to do the things that they know God has for them to do. You know what I'm saying? Because if you really want to serve the Lord, you know what I'm saying, you will be willing, if your job is going to stop you from serving God, then you need to, if you truly trying to serve the Lord, you know what I'm saying, then you're going to have to give that job up. Because you don't want to let no little job keep you from having a close relationship with the Lord. But a lot of people is not willing to do that. They're not willing to do that. They're not willing to give up that job. It might be a high-paying job. I don't care how much. Y'all remember, matter of fact, a perfect example, talking about Jesus again, there was this one time when this man approached Jesus. And he said, you know what I'm saying, I think he said, Master, what must I do to get to be saved, basically, to get to heaven? And Jesus said, you know, just obey all the commandments, kind of thing. And the guy, like, you know, he was feeling good, like, oh, I've done all that from my youth. He said, oh, yeah, and there's one more thing. Give away everything you have and give it to the poor and then come follow me. And it said when Jesus said that, the guy ran off crying because he was very rich. See, he wasn't willing to depart with those worldly things so he can have a clothes. This was Jesus himself. It ain't like, no, it was Paul or somebody that came along. It was Jesus himself. God himself said, hey, you know, go sell all your stuff and come follow me. And the guy ran off crying because he was rich. He wasn't willing to let go of his worldly thing so he can serve the Lord. Why? Because they look foolish. Because you look at Jesus, you know what I'm saying? It's so funny how we focus so much on money and possessions. And you look at Jesus, he had nothing. He was God and he had nothing. He didn't even have a place to stay. He was places, basically everywhere he went, he was sleeping on somebody's couch. And, you know, they make fun of people for doing stuff like that. But that's exactly what Jesus did. He didn't have no camels or chariots that take him everywhere he went. He walked everywhere he went. They was hiking because he didn't have no helmet. He didn't have any materialistic thing, but he was full of the Spirit of God. So he had more than anybody else around him had. But see, that's what we don't understand. We get so focused. We get so focused on having money and material things that we let our money and our material thing keep us away from God. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, people use, when I was back, and I say this all the time, and not bragging, but y'all know before I moved here, I was working 2 full-time jobs. And yet I still went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night, and I still went and worked the bus route on Sunday morning. Now, and the way my schedule went was, and it worked out, I had one job. I worked from Friday night. I worked the night shift, 12-hour shift from 7 at night to 7 in the morning. And I did that Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. So I worked 36 hours, but they paid me for 40. So that was pretty awesome. And then during the week, Monday through Friday, I had another full-time job because the other one I only worked on the weekend. But you got to understand that Friday was rough because I would have to get out one job and then go to another one and work all night. And then that Monday was rough because I would have to leave my 7 to 7 job, get off at 7 o'clock in the morning and go to another job. But yet on Sunday mornings, I got out working and show you how great God is. I was living in Murfreesboro, and the route I was working, they was going down into Nashville to pick up kids in the project in Nashville. So I lived in Murfreesboro, but I worked in Smyrna. So Smyrna, the exit for Smyrna is right between Nashville and Murfreesboro. So it worked out that when the people left the bus, they left about 7 something. So basically, it worked out to where as soon as I got out of work, I would drive down the street to a gas station that was right beside the interstate, and the church bus on their way down to Nashville would stop and pick me up, and I would leave my car there in the gas station parking lot. Ride down with them to go down there, pick the kids up, take the kids back to church, go to church myself. After church was over, we had to take the kids back down to Nashville. And then after that, we would usually have lunch. Then I go back and pick my car up and then go home and sleep for 2-3 hours and get back up and go to work. I did all that while working 2 full-time jobs. Why? Because I really wanted to serve the Lord. So if you want to really serve the Lord, you'll be willing to give these things up. But see, to the world, that's foolish. I remember this one guy I led to the Lord as a truck driver. And an awesome story, I ain't gonna get into that because, but basically I was talking to this guy, I was sharing my testimony with him. I had gave him a ride, some people had basically scammed about his money here in town, and he needed a ride, like, he was a truck driver, and he was parked down there in Holiday, on exit 143, which y'all know that little red lens in Buffalo area. And the people, he needed to come to town to get some medicine. So he paid these people like a lot of money to bring him in town to get his medicine. And he gave them the money up front. So when he went in and got his medicine, came back out, they was gone. So he ended up sitting out, and I was at the jail. That's when I was still going to the jail. So when I walked out of jail, I had just got through preaching in jail. I walked out and this guy was sitting on the jail steps. And I just know whenever I see somebody out there, I come across, I always talk to him, give him a track. And I'm like, what's going on with you? He's like, well, and then he told me his little situation. He said, I'm hoping one of these sheriff's officers would be willing to give me a ride back down to my truck. I said, well, man, I had to be at work. I said, but man, I ain't doing nothing. I give you a ride. He's like, for real? Like, yeah. So I get in the truck, and of course, in my mind, maybe I can witness to this guy. So I get in the truck and get to talking, and next thing you know, I'm sharing my testimony with the guy, and turns out he wasn't saved. So I'm sharing my testimony with the guy, and I'm telling him how I used to be a drug dealer, how I went from being a drug dealer to a preacher all in one night. And, of course, I was telling him about all the money I had, the girls, and a nice place. And he's like, man, he said, let me ask you something. He said, be straight with me. He said, how were you able to give all that up? He said, how could you have all that stuff that you had, the girls, the cars, the money, and all that, and give all that up and, start serving God, and now you, not that you broke, but you have nothing. He said, how you get that up? I said, for two reasons. I said, one, I had did things the way I had wanted to do them for so long, and I had all those things, but those things was miserable. I said, two, because I understand that this was part of God's will, and God's will is way better than my will. And he said, man, how can I get into God's will? I said, the first thing I do is get saved. And he said, lay it on me. And we I got to where his truck was at, and we pulled into the parking lot, and I went over the gospel, and that guy bowed his head and got saved. You see what I'm saying? Why? And but he couldn't say it, because when I said that, the way when I was going through my story, he almost thought I was lying, because I was like, man, I had this and that and that, and I gave it up. He said, man, how can you give all that up? And I realized that stuff that I had, it wasn't as valuable as having a close relationship with the Lord. And that's basically what I told. I said, all that stuff I had, I was like, it was fun. I said, but man, I had all this stuff and I was still depressed. I've thought about killing myself. And I realized those things there was not nowhere near as valuable as it was to have this relationship with the Lord that I have right now. And I said, plus I told him, I said, and I understand that God's will is way better than my will. And he said, man, how can I get in God's will? And I told him, and that dude ended up getting saved. You see what I'm saying? So he couldn't believe that I was willing to walk away from that lifestyle that I had, where I thought I had everything. He couldn't believe that because of his worldly outlook. He's like, and he said, women are my problem. He said, I don't think I can give all that stuff up. Matter of fact, when we pulled into the gas station, like I was going to back in, and he told me himself, he said, man, don't back in. He said, I want you to pull in straight ahead so I can't see behind me. He said, because I got a problem looking at women, and I'm scared I'm going to be focused on trying to see what's coming out of the gas station and listen to you. He kept it 100. So that's what I did. I pulled in, I went over the gospel with him, he got saved. So and again, because he was still stuck in his worldly ways, he just got saved, so it ain't like he was a super Christian right then and there kind of thing. But because he was stuck in his ways, it was hard for him to fathom giving up all those things that I gave up to serve God. You know what I'm saying? And that's the word gonna tell you, man, you're gonna give up your money, you're gonna give up your car, you're gonna give up all that stuff to serve God. Like, you know what I'm saying? What are you gonna get in return? And again, on this earth, you might not get nothing in return. You might not get no rewards down here on earth, but when you get into heaven, you know what I'm saying? That's when you get to hear that, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And I hope that is all y'all go. That's my goal. If I hear anything less than that, I'm going to be upset. My life is a failure to me. If I don't see the Lord's face and he don't say, well done, thou good and faithful servant, I fail. You know what I'm saying? That is my goal. And I hope the same too. And you got to understand, but in order to do that, you're going to have to be willing to get something up. So we go over here, we're going to look at Peter, Andrew, James, and John. So over in if you open your Bible up, we're on chapter 4, verses 18 through 23. And I don't think I made my announcement. Of course, I'm reading out the New Living Translation. Normally, I am a King James believer. I read out the King James. But for this ministry, I always read out the New Living Translation to make sure everybody understand what I'm saying. So we got this very same situation where these guys going to have to give us some things so they can have a close relationship with the Lord. So we see here it says my Bible says the first disciples. So verse 18 says, so one day as Jesus was walking along the shore beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, fishing with their net, for they were commercial fishermen. And Jesus called out to them, come be my disciples, and I will show you how to fish for people. Now, with that, I do like to read the King James Version because it just is more, I love the way it's worded. It just says, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. He said, all right, right now you out here trying to catch these fish. He said, but I'm gonna show you how to catch souls, basically. You know what I'm saying? What happened, he said, and they left their nets at once and with him. So you got to understand, they went out there on a fishing trip. This ain't something they was doing for fun. This is how they pay their bills. You know what I'm saying? This is how, matter of fact, right now, if y'all get the opportunity, there's a show called The Chosen. If you get the opportunity to check it out, great show. It's a great show, and it's basically showing Jesus, you know what I'm saying, another side. It's just Jesus in the light that you never seen him before, how he's never presented in the Bible, but it's basically showing him as he's calling out his disciples and how he's choosing his disciples and how he's calling them out. Great show. You know what I'm saying? But you got to understand, these guys were fishermen. That's what they did. So for him to say, come follow me, you know what I'm saying, and they just dropped everything to follow him, that's foolish. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to understand, Peter was married. You know, Peter's married. I don't necessarily know if he had kids or not. I'm not familiar if he had a kid or not. I don't know if that's in the Bible, but he did have a wife. He was married because there was a situation later on that he got into with Jesus and his mother-in-law. But he was married, so he had a wife that he had to think about. So for this guy, some guy in a dashiki to come along and say, "Hey, give up everything, come follow me," and for them to do it, that's foolish. That's foolish. But to a saved man, to somebody that understand the power of God, that's what you got to do. You got to look like a fool. You got to be willing to look like a fool to serve the Lord. And they was willing to do that. And of course we know, what did Peter do? Now, Peter ended up denying the Lord, but over in Acts, once that Holy Spirit come on him, he ended up being the pillar of the church. Just like Jesus told him, he was the rock that the church was built on. Our modern local churches today started from the work that Peter did. You see what I'm saying? Why? Because he was foolish enough to leave his job behind and go follow some man talking about God. You see what I'm saying? That's what you got to do. And then we look, and James and John, it says over in verse 21, he said a little farther up the shore, he saw two other brothers, James and John, sitting in the boat with their father, Zebedee, mending their nets. And he called them to come too. And they immediately, and I want to make sure you follow that. He said they immediately followed him, leaving the boat and their father behind. So they not only did it, they did it immediately. What do we like to do sometimes? You know what I'm saying? Oh man, well, let me get this done, and let me get this done, and then I'm gonna get back to God. I hear it all the time, man. I need to straighten some things out, and then I'm gonna get to God. You know what I'm saying? I remember this one time, I was soul winning. I was in Clarksville, in the projects in Clarksville, and I was talking to this young dude, and he knew he wasn't saved. He knew he wasn't saved. I was sitting there trying to go over the gospel with him, and I think I went over the gospel with him, but when I got through the gospel, I was like, no, you want to accept the Lord as Savior? He like, no, I don't just want to do that just yet. I'm like, why not? He said, well, man, I you know what I'm saying? I'm a hustler, and I do these things, and I don't want to be playing with God because I know I'm probably going to be doing some stuff I ain't supposed to be doing. And I said, bro, for you to know that you are unsaved and you're not willing to get saved, that's playing with God. I know, and I said, it says, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Now, yeah, you shouldn't go out there and purposely do stuff, but you don't train yourself up and then go to God. You go to God and let God train you up. But we always, and then we like, man, I'm going to get myself straight, and then I'll make the decision. And I pray, I don't know the kid, I never got his name or anything, and I pray he had opportunity. But for all I know, he could have died the very next day and be in here right now. You see what I'm saying? So these guys, they understood that even though the world probably say they was foolish, they understood that when Jesus called, when God got a calling for you, you got to do that right then and there. You know what I'm saying? My pastor said all the time, well, if God say jump, you say how, you ask him how high on the way up. You see what I'm saying? You got to do it immediately. And that's what they did. But you notice, not only did they lose, again, these guys wasn't out there fishing with their dad because it was a father-son moment. They was at work. You know what I'm saying? They worked with their dad. That's what they did. They supported their dad in their business. But when God called them, they left their business and their dad behind. And that's what we have to do, man. If you want to build your relationship with God, there's going to be a lot of things and a lot of people that you're going to have to leave behind. And it's so many of us miss the calling of our lives with God because we're not willing to do so. Either we're not willing to leave our things behind or we're not willing to leave certain people behind. Y'all know me. I love people. I build a relationship with people. You know, so I have all kind of friends that even though I don't talk to them every year, we still friends, good friends, and we can pick up right where we left off. But when I'm on my God stuff, if I'm trying to do something for the Lord and you're not going that direction, I'm just gonna keep going. I'm not leaving you behind. Not that I'm better than you, but I can't let you hold me back. And there's a lot of people let the world and what the world perceive of them and the things of this world hold them back from doing what God wants them to do. Like I was saying that first example, when Jesus told the man, hey, go give all your stuff and come follow me. He was giving him an opportunity. Y'all gotta think about that. He was giving him the opportunity to walk and talk and learn from God himself. That's that opportunity this guy had. He had the opportunity to walk and talk and learn from God, spend time with God himself. And he went off crying because he didn't want to give up his money to do so. Why? Because he felt his family, I'm pretty sure, his family, all the people he supported, they would have thought he was foolish. So he was so worried about what the world was going to think, and he's so worried about what he was going to be able to buy and the possessions he's going to be able to have, that he missed the opportunity to walk and talk and live in the presence of God himself. Why? Because he thought that would be foolish, when in reality he was foolish because of the decision he made, because he chose money over God. And if you make that decision, you're going to lose every single time. So you got to ask yourself, are you willing, number 6, are you willing to give up worldly things because it interferes with what you do in God's work? You know what I'm saying? Are you still out there chasing women? Is that what's keeping you from doing God's work? Then you got to get that stuff up. Are you still out there drinking? If your drinking is keeping you from doing God's work, then you got to get that stuff up. You're smoking weed. A lot of people ask me, like, I be talking to people like, man, you don't smoke weed, that's natural, blah, blah. I actually came across that again this weekend. My mom, I was hanging out with my mom, my brother, and an old friend of ours. Everybody was smoking and I wouldn't. And like, man, I can't believe you gave weed up, blah, blah, blah. That's natural, blah, blah, blah. And, and I believe in all that. But I know how I am. And when I smoke weed, like I told y'all my testimony before, when I smoke. And I'm high all the time. You know what I'm saying? And I had a situation that happened that really made me realize I need to get weed up if I really want to do God's work. Y'all might have heard this story before, but I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, and me, him, and his girlfriend, we was all smoking weed together. And just right as the what I like to call pre-blunt, pre-high conversation, turns out, as we started smoking, I was asking his girlfriend, because anybody I meet that I have never met before, I always ask them about their salvation, and she wasn't sure. So by the time we got to the point where she said she wasn't sure about her salvation, the weed had kicked in and I was high. So I'm trying to witness to her, but I was so high that it didn't even make any kind of sense at all. You know what I'm saying? And that bothered me because I didn't know if I was ever going to see this young woman again. And this might have been the only time that I got to witness to her, and I couldn't do it because I was so high. So that's what I finally realized, that if I'm going to really do God's work, I think I told y'all before, my goal, I'm going to read this little statement. It's right in front of my Bible. It says, the world has yet to see what God can do with and for and through and in a man who is fully and wholly consecrated to him. A man like that can change the world. You should aim to be that man. And that's, in other words, anybody, what God can do with somebody that's 100% given to him, what God can do with a person like that can change his world. That's what Jesus did. Jesus was a person, he was God, yes, but he was 100% given to God's will. We can see that by him down on the cross. You know what I'm saying? He even said in the garden the night before, Lord, take this cup from me, but not my will be done thine. So he didn't want to go through that, but he was 100% dedicated to God's will. And look I'm 2,000 years later, I'm sitting here talking about him right now. It's because of his death, burial, and resurrection that I'm able to receive God's grace right now. See, a man that's 100% given to God can change the world. And I would love to be that. That don't mean I'm 100% perfect. That don't mean I'm a perfect servant of God. That don't mean I'm still not going to mess up. But that means that your heart is given 100% to the Lord. And I knew as long as I was smoking weed and dealing with weed and drugs and alcohol, that my heart would never be 100% given to the Lord. And that's why I gave it up. And thank God, 3 years now, which is the longest I've been since I've started smoking weed. 3 years is the longest I've ever been without smoking weed. And I'm praying that trend continue. Unless God himself come down and say, it's okay to blaze up that blunt, I'm done with weed. Why? Because I felt it was not because I feel it's wrong and the devil's let all that other stuff. The reason I gave up weed, because I felt that it was interfering for me. It was interfering with me completely being able to do God's work. Are you willing to do the same? There's some things, y'all, anybody that's watching this video know right now, and I'm pretty sure that the Holy Spirit is convicting you about it. You know it's some things in your life right now that you're doing that if you didn't do those things, you would do more for God. You know, are you willing to give those things up? You know what I'm saying? Because the world, like I said, my brother and my mom, that man, I can't believe you gave up there. It was foolish to them that I gave up their weed that made me feel so good and helped me relax and make every song that sounds like the greatest song ever. It was foolish to me to get it up. But to me being a man of God and understanding how much more power from God I can get by giving that thing up, it was nothing to me. You know what I'm saying? Because my focus was more on the things of God instead of the things of this world. And that is something you're going to have to do. You're going to have to focus more on the things of God instead of the things of this world. But when you do so, the world is going to call you a fool. If you're not willing to go out there and get that money, you're not willing to go out there and chase the wind, you're not willing to go out there partying, drinking, and smoking every weekend, man, this dude lying. People stop hanging out with you because they don't want to be around you. Man, this dude a fool. But again, if you're looking in the eyes of God, that's my servant right there. That's my keep going. That's my servant. So are you willing to do the same thing? Are you willing to give up the worldly thing because it interferes with you doing God's work? That's a serious question that you really need to ask yourself. And that's why I had it number 6 tonight, so to be the first one in this lesson, because I wanted to make sure I get it, because that's a big one there. Are you willing to give up those things? Anything in your life right now that's keeping you from having a closer relationship with God, that's keeping you from getting in your Bible, that's keeping you from having your prayer time, that's keeping you from going out knocking on doors on Saturdays, anything, any of those things that you have going on, and you know what they is, are you willing to get those things up? Because if you do, the world is going to call you foolish. But if you do, if you don't, the world's going to call you foolish. But if you do, the world will call you foolish. But also if you do, the Lord will call you my faithful servant. Which one do you want to hear? Do you want to hear what the world praise, or do you want to hear God's praise? You know what I'm saying? You got to make that decision. So that's number 6. Are you willing to give up worldly things because it interferes with you doing God's work? Number 7. This is another one. And these two really, and that's why I put these kind of behind itself, because number 7 kind of goes along with number 6. And the reason why a lot of people don't do number 6 is because they don't do number 7. And number 7 is this: are you willing to put your faith in God to provide? Are you willing to put your faith in God for Him to provide? Are you willing to do that? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people not willing to do that. That's why they work so much. That's why they chase their money so much, because they feel they got to provide for themselves. They're not trusting in God to provide. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know I've talked about it before. You know, I got one job. You know, so I got 10 kids, about 10 kids or 10 people I'm responsible for, and one job. You know, my wife, just with her health, she's not is not able to work. But even if she was, I wouldn't want her to work, because that was one of the things that got me messed up when I was younger, because my mom always had to work, and she was leaving with whoever would babysit, and the people that were babysitting was the ones that was doing them a lesson and things of that nature. So I always said that if I ever if I ever have kids, I would make sure, no matter how much I had to work, how hard I had to work, I would make sure my wife be in a position where she don't have to work. So my wife don't work. Now I got a really good job and I got a good salary, so I'm not complaining. But the way, especially with this inflation now, and gas about to be $10 a gallon, especially with this war and all this stuff going on, I don't make enough. I make good money, but I don't make enough to take care of the 10 individuals that I'm taking care of. You know what I'm saying? But yet I still tithe every single paycheck. You know what I'm saying? And with my paycheck, like I said, it's a pretty big paycheck, so my tithe should be pretty big. And I'm not gonna sit here and lie to y'all like I'm some super Christian, like I'm like, yeah, praise the Lord, I'm giving this money. Man, the whole time that envelope is heading toward that collection plate, I be looking at it, I be wanting, my spirit be like, man, my flesh be like, boy, pull that money back, we can use that money. But my spirit like, man, hey, put it on God, let God provide. And for the last 3 years, not only have I not stopped smoking for the last 3 years, for the last 3 years, I've made sure that no matter what, I pay my tithes every single Sunday. And guess what? Even though my money gets low, even though things break down on me, and sometimes we want to get some things and we can't get the things, I've always had everything I've needed. I've never come home and not had electricity. I've never not had a home to come to. You know what I'm saying? My rent's been paid. My cars is mine. They old and raggedy, but they're mine. I got the titles to both of them. Actually, one of them died on me last week, so I'm gonna have to get a new one here, which sucks, because that means I'm gonna have to go take out a loan and have a car payment again. I ain't had one in years. But you know, my truck is still going. It's mine. You know what I'm saying? I never came home and my lights went on. I've never been in a situation where I didn't have no food in my refrigerator. You know what I'm saying? And not on top of that, I've been taking care of other people. I've got my younger brother, I got custody of him, you know what I'm saying, take care of him. I've had at least 3 or 4 other kids since we moved in this town 8 years ago. Matter of fact, since we moved in this town 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago, we've had somebody that wasn't part of our family staying with us every single year. We have yet to have a year here where it's just us and our family. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I'm already short on money and I'm giving my 10% in time. You know what I'm saying? Why am I able to do that? Because I trust God to provide. You know what I'm saying? It might not be, I might not have the things I want. You know what I'm saying? I be seeing people, they be going on cruises and they always taking vacations out in Mexico. And I got the one friend, he always skiing and stuff. I'm like, man, how did they get to do that stuff? Like, man, like I would love to be able to do some stuff like that. But I can't do those things. I don't get to just take off and go halfway across the world all willy-nilly if I want to. But guess what? I get to spread the word of God. I get to come home and spend time with my family every day. My family get to come home. Because when I was in Memphis, I've had days where I came home and there was no lights. I've had days where I came home and there wasn't no food in the refrigerator. I had to eat mustard sandwiches. You know what I'm saying? Only you really, if you never had a mustard sandwich with a little sugar on it, you know what I'm saying, had some sugar water that you try to make it in Kool-Aid, you just put some sugar in the water. If you ain't never had that, you ain't telling me nothing. You know what I'm saying? I've had the mustard sandwich. I've had mayonnaise sandwiches before. You see what I'm saying? And it's fun when you eat those. If you close your eyes, you can almost taste the meat sometimes. You know what I'm saying? I heard Eddie Griffin say that. It was so hilarious. You know, I've had that happen before. So I understand that it can happen. But it's not happened since I've been serving the Lord. It hasn't happened since I've been giving my time. It hasn't happened since I've been giving money to take care of others, even though really I can't take care of myself. I had to make a sacrifice to do it. You know, I had to know, saying, I know one time my son said this, and it wasn't a selfish thing. He was just making an observation. He's like, Dad, you realize that all the money you spent taking care of, like, had you not spent all this money, had you not been taking care of all these people all these years, you know, start with my brother when I was in college. He said, had you not spent all the money to take care of everybody else, then you would probably be well off right now. You might even be rich right now because you had enough money to invest. And I'm like, yeah, that is. I'm like, but I did invest. He's like, what did you invest? I said, I invested in people. You know what I'm saying? I invested in God's work. I said, that's my investment because I'm going to get more return on that investment than anything. Now, again, I might not get those returns while I'm here on earth, but when I get to heaven, that's where that well done, thou good and faithful servant come from. You know what I'm saying? How did you invest your time? How did you invest your resources? Did you make the lives of others around you better or did you make it worse? That's how you get to hear that. So this whole time, like I said, I've been struggling. I had to file, before we moved here, I had to file bankruptcy because I had lost my job for a year. So I've been struggling the whole time being up here financially. But people would never know it if I didn't talk about it. Why? Because God always provides. And I trust him to provide. Whenever somebody asks me for something, even if I don't have it, or I might just have a few dollars and they want that few dollars I have, I give it to them because I know they don't have nothing. And I know that God is going to give it back to me some way, somehow. You see what I'm saying? Because I trust in God to provide. He's the Jehovah Jireh, the Lord that provides. Do you trust the same thing? You know what I'm saying? When you look at the story of Abraham, and that he's not the example, we're going to look at another example. Matter of fact, let's go over to, this is a situation. 1 Kings, let's go to 1 Kings again. This is another situation with Elijah. Y'all know Elijah came up twice because Elijah, he had his faith in the Lord. God did a mighty work through him because he had his faith in the Lord. 1 Kings chapter 17, where we're going to be at. But no, the story of Abraham, you know, when the Lord told him to sacrifice his son, he loved his son. You know what I'm saying? He was the one that God had made this promise that he was going to bring his whole seed through. And then God told him to go kill him? That's foolish. And he was 99 years old. So it ain't like you can, you know what I'm saying, go make another one. And God told him to kill the one he got. And he was willing to do it because he said the Lord, and when the son, when he was walking up the mountain, the Lord, he said, his son said, hey, we got the wood and the fire. Where's the sacrifice? And what did he say? The Lord is going to provide us with one. He trusted the Lord to provide. And of course, he tied his son up, threw him on the pile, getting ready to plunge the knife into him. And that's when God said, wait. He said, I understand now. You ain't held nothing back from me. And he said he looked over there and it was a ram in the bush. You know what I'm saying? And if you read that, it said he named the place Jehovah Jireh, the Lord provides. He trusted that even though the Lord had only given him a son when he was 99 years old, gave him his first son, he trusted the Lord would provide him with another one because he trusted in the word of the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Do you trust in the Lord provide, or do you feel that your survival is dependent upon you? And that's what a lot of us, we think our survival and our way of life depends on us, and we don't realize it really depends on the Lord. So we're going to see this situation, again, another situation that if you look at it, you're like, this is foolish. But again, to the world going to think it's foolish. But to this woman here, she's going to see a mighty miracle because she was willing to act the fool for the Lord. So let's go to Elijah. We're in First Kings chapter 17, and I'm reading verses 8 through 24. Wonderful situation. So again, this is the situation. Now, this was right before the example we went over last week, where he had the contest on Mount Carmel. Matter of fact, this is the chapter right before that, because the contest was in chapter 18 that we covered last week. So this is the week before that. So at this point, they're in a drought still. The rain is nowhere in sight. They're still in the drought. And matter of fact, Elijah, he had been running from Jezebel because she was trying to kill him because he was a prophet of the Lord. So the drought is in sight. So basically, nobody has food. Nobody has grain. And, you know, if you read the Bible, a lot of their food came from the grain they made. They made corn or wheat, and they would, you know, knead that into bread. And of course, if they had a lamb or something, they would get their meat. But they ate a lot of bread. They do a lot of talking about eating bread. So at this point, nobody had water, so there was no grain. It wasn't barely any bread, and a lot of people were dying of starvation. You know, so this situation comes up where God told Elijah to go to this widow, and she was basically in the same situation. She was getting ready to die. So watch what happens. So Elijah goes to this widow. It said that then the Lord said to Elijah, "Go and live in the village of Zarephath, near the city of Sidon. There is a widow there who will feed you. I have given her my instruction." Now, she had no clue. Now, the Lord said that, but she had no clue that this was of the Lord, what was about to happen to her. So what happened? So he went to Zarephath. So again, following God's will, he was willing to do that. So it said, as he arrived at the gates of the village, he saw a widow gathering sticks, and he asked her, "Would you please bring me a cup of water?" Now, as she was going to get it, he called to her, "Bring me a bite of bread too." But she said, now watch what she say. But she said, "I swear by the Lord your God." So she knew he was a man of God. So she said, "I swear by the Lord your God that I don't have a single piece of bread in the house. And I have only a handful of flour left in the jar and a little cooking oil in the bottom of the jug. And I was just gathering a few sticks to cook this last meal, and then me and my son and I would die." I'm sorry. He said, "I was just gathering a few sticks to cook this last meal, and then my son and I would die." Because that's basically what happened. Once you ran out of food, that was it. You know what I'm saying? You died. So this was her last. She had just enough to basically make her and her son some pancakes. You know what I'm saying? A couple of pancakes. They were going to eat them pancakes, and however long they survived off them pancakes, that's what they were going to do. Now watch what Elijah tell her. Now she just said, "This is all I got. Like, I swear I ain't got nothing else, bro. If I had it," you know how we say, "Bro, if I had it, you know I give it to you." But she said, "Man, I promise you, bro, I ain't got nothing else. I got just enough to make me and my son a pancake. We're going to eat that, and then we're going to die." But Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go ahead and cook that last meal." And I like the way they got in quotation. Go ahead and cook that last meal, because he knew the Lord about to do a miracle. He said, "But bake me a little loaf of bread first, and afterwards there will still be enough for you and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. There will always be plenty of flour and oil left in your containers until the time when the Lord sends the rain and the crops to grow again." So hold on. So the situation is, again, this lady's broke. There's no rain. She got just enough flour to make her and her son 2 pancakes. They're going to eat them pancakes, and they're going to die. And this dude come along and say, "Hey, go ahead and make me one first." And you notice what he said? He said, "Go make y'all one and then give me the leftovers." He said, "Make me one first. And if you make me one first, then you'll have enough for you and your son." That's foolish. She already knows. She's a cook. This ain't like this is her first time. You women, you know. You know what I'm saying? We got this Valentine banquet coming up this weekend. And the one thing that the preacher been doing for the last couple of weeks, I know Valentine's past, but we call it the Valentine banquet, but it's really a banquet we get together around this time. But anyway, the preacher's been begging people like, "Hey, if y'all gonna come, let me know." And the reason why he's doing that, because how can you cook for somebody, a certain amount of people, and you don't know how many it is? You know what I'm saying? You don't want to cook for 30 people and 10 people show up, And you don't want to cook for 10 people and 30 show up. You need to know. So this woman knows how much she got. She knows she got enough for one more meal. She's not dumb. She's been cooking her whole life, most likely. She got a child. I don't know where the dad is at. They don't say nothing about the dad. Well, it says a widow, so obviously the dad is dead. So she's been taking care of this child, and whatever resources that she had, they're all gone because the dad is dead. The women can't work. So this is all she got left, and she got just enough for her and her son. And this dude talking about make him one first. That's foolish to do something like that. Because most of you wouldn't be like, man, you forget you. I'm going to feed my kid. You know what I'm saying? I know Rez would. That's why I love her. She always put the kids first. The kids come even before me. And that's one of the things that made me fall in love with her, because she always put our kids first. She always makes sure the kids get fed first. And then if there's anything left, we get it. You know what I'm saying? So I know even Rez, she'd be like, you got it messed up. I'm going to feed my kids first. But what did Elijah tell her? Make me one first. Now, I know you only got a little bit for you, but make me one first, and I guarantee you make me one first. If you foolish enough, then make me one first. Give me a little bit of your last. I'll make sure whatever you do got is gonna last you forever. That's foolish, y'all. That is I'm sorry, dumb as hell. You gonna let your kids starve to feed this other dude? But she knew he was a man of God. Now the world, they tell you gonna let your kids starve. You wrong for that. You gonna let your kids starve so you can feed this other dude? But what did I say? Give me something first. Why did he say feed me something first? Because what do I quote to y'all all the time? Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and its righteousness, and the rest of these things shall be added unto you. And that's basically what Elijah told her. Like, give a portion of God first, because he was a man of God, so he was a representative of God. So basically he was telling her, give a portion of that to God first, which is what tithing is. Give a portion of God first, and I guarantee you're going to have enough to last you. You know what I'm saying? Now, again, that sounds foolish, but if you trust in God, if you're really a person of God and you trust in God, you know God provides. She knew that he was a man of God, and she had enough faith to be foolish enough to make this man a cake before she made her son a cake. And watch what happened, y'all, because she was so foolish. Check this out. So it says, he told her, there will always be plenty of flour and oil left in your containers until the time when the Lord sends rain and the crops to grow. Now remember, she had just enough for one meal. Now watch what happened, verse 15. So she did as Elijah said. So she was a fool. She gonna let her kids starve to feed some man. She was a fool. If they had Facebook back then, they would have blasted her all over Facebook. Everybody would blast her about how dumb she was, how foolish she was for feeding a man before a child. But watch what happened. This was a man of God. This wasn't no regular man. So she did as Elijah said, and she and Elijah and her son continued to eat from her supply of flour and oil for many days. For no matter how much they used, there was always enough left in the containers, just as the Lord had promised through Elijah. That's God providing. See what I'm saying? We try to hold on to, like I said, I'm right there with y'all. When I had to put that tithe check in that thing, and then I get admissions as well. You know what I'm saying? I've had to put checks $700-800 in there for tithe. You know what I'm saying? And I'll be like, man, I need that. I got these bills coming up this week. This is my bills a week. I need them, and I be wanting to hold on to that, but I give it to God. And guess what? All my bills get paid. All my bills get paid. We still have food. Now, again, you know what I'm saying? My clothes might be a little ragged. I might have to wear the same clothes over and over. You know, a lot of people ask me like, why do you wear those muscle shirts and tank tops? This looks so tacky. Why do you wear those tank tops and you sitting there preaching? I said, well, it's two reasons. One, because they're cheap and I can afford them. And two, because if I wear outfits, then I got to have a different outfit every week, and I can't afford that. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, I don't have the money, but I have God in my life. I might not be able to afford a new wardrobe every week, but I can afford to make sure my rent is paid. I can afford to make sure my kids eat. And if you know my kids, that's a lot, because my kids eat a lot. You know what I'm saying? I had 4 boys and 2 girls in the house at the same time. Not to mention me and my fat self. You know what I'm saying? We've always had food, always had our water, we always had our electricity, always had a place to stay. Why? Because I put my faith and trust in the Lord for him to provide. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to give my 10%, and he going to do his part, and he going to make sure I have enough to cover everything. And again, the pastor say this, and I understand, since I've been doing it, I never can understand, because when I wasn't paying tithes, I was always missing bills. You know what I'm saying? I would always have to borrow it from here and there, rob Peter to pay Paul kind of thing. I was always having to do that. I was always coming up short. But now that I be paying my tithe for the last 3 years, I'm always, even if I come up short, I end up ahead somehow. It's always some money, just some insurance, or just randomly, you overpaid for these prescriptions. Here go a check for $300, like just out of the blue. I'm always have enough because I trust in the Lord to provide. When other people is in need, you know what I'm saying? I know they have more need than I have. And even though it might be my last few dollars, I can survive without those dollars, where they won't be able to survive if they don't get those dollars. I go ahead and give it to her because I trusted the Lord to provide for me because I was doing his work. Are you willing to do the same? Are you willing to put your faith in God to provide? You know what I'm saying? And to finish the story, I love the story. So she did it. And the Lord provided, and he even provided for her even another way. So not only did he make sure, even though she had enough for one meal, it said many days. Now, it don't say in how many days. I don't know if it was a month. I don't know if it was a year. It don't give really give a timeline, a clear timeline on how long they ate. But the fact that, many is at least 3. You know, and the fact that she had enough for one meal and they ate for at least 3 days. I'm pretty sure it was way more than that, but I'm just saying, even if we just for the sake of argument, it was 3 days. She took a meal that she had enough supplies to last for one meal, and it lasted 3 days because she trusted the Lord to provide. And then something else happened. Watch this. So in verse 17 it says, so sometime later, the woman's son became sick, and he grew worse and worse, and finally he died. She then said to Elijah, "O man of God." So again, she did that because she knew he was a man of God. That's why she was able to make that decision. He wasn't just some bum coming through, trying to hook up with some single mom and take food out of her kid's mouth. He was a man of God, and she knew because it said the Lord gave her the instructions, so she knew that she needed to provide for this man of God. So then she said to Elijah, "O man of God, what have you done to me? How have you come here to punish my sins by killing my son?" So it shows you that she wasn't some hyper spiritual lady. She wasn't some super Christian or something. She was just a regular sinner just like you and me. But she said, "Have you came here to punish my sins by killing my son?" But Elijah replied, "Give me your son." And he took the boy's body from her, carried him up to the upper room where he lived, and laid the body on his bed. Then Elijah cried out to the Lord, "O Lord my God, why have you brought tragedy on this widow who has opened her home to me, causing her son to die?" And he stressed, in other words, why have you brought tragedy on this widow that's just trusting in you to provide? How you going to take her son away? And then he said, and he stretched himself out over the child 3 times and cried out to the Lord, Oh my God, please let this child's life return to him." And the Lord heard Elijah's prayer, and the life of the child returned, and he came back to life. Then Elijah brought him down from the upper room and gave him to his mother. "Look, your son is alive," he said. Then the woman told Elijah, "Now I know for sure that you are a man of God and that the Lord truly speaks through you." And I'm pretty sure she said too, "I know the Lord can provide." That's what the Lord will do for you if you put your faith and trust in him. Trust him to provide for you. Don't try to do it all yourself. Now again, do your part. No, don't be lazy. You can work, go get a job, go get your butt out there and work. But when the bills, when you go out there and you worked all you can and you put your skill to the use and you still come up short, just trust God gonna take care of it. You know what I'm saying? Make wise decisions. Don't get me wrong. Don't mean go out there and go to strip club and make it rain because God's gonna take care of you. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying use your resources you have wisely, but don't fret when they look like you're gonna come up a little bit short. Because you got to trust that God is going to provide for you. And that's what this woman did. She had enough supply for one meal, and it ended up lasting many days because she put her faith and trust in the Lord for him to provide. Are you willing to do the same? So number 7, are you willing to put your faith in God to provide? You know what I'm saying? Are you going to pay your tithes? Are you going to give to others? Because a lot of times we don't do those things because we're worried about coming up short ourselves because we don't have enough faith that the Lord will provide for us. But if you are willing to do those things, it will show the Lord that you are willing to act like a fool for him. Because again, the world is going to tell you that's foolish to take out of your kid's mouth to feed somebody else. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, if the Lord has called you to do so, then that's what he's called you to do. And you trusting in him that when I do this work you told me to do, Lord, when I take care of these people, that's what I felt when I adopted my older brother, when I adopted my younger brother, when I had these stray kids staying with us for a while. You know what I'm saying? I knew I didn't have the money to do it because I was already short myself, but I put my faith and trust in the Lord to provide, and I have yet to be disappointed. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, that 90%, I always go farther than that 100% ever went, is because I'm putting my faith and trust in the Lord to provide. So number 6 was, are you willing to give up your worldly things because it interferes with you doing God's work? Number 7, are you willing to put your faith in God to provide? And number 8 is this. Are you willing to put your faith and trust in God for healing? Are you willing to let the Lord heal you? You know what I'm saying? When you get sick, when you feel something going on in your body, what is the first thing you do? Do you go to your doctors first or do you go to the Lord? You know what I'm saying? Now, a lot of people, they take this and they run wild with it, especially the charismatic people, and they do the weird, I'm going to put my hand on you, people fall out and all that stuff. That's weird. You know what I'm saying? That's some weird stuff. Some people claim they've been healed from it. I've never had it happen to me. I've never seen it happen in real life, but you know what I'm saying? To each his own. You know what I'm saying? But I do, whenever I have a medical condition coming up, whenever I know there's some situation like with the whole coronavirus thing, I'm not finna run and let them jab me just so I can feel safe. I put my faith and trust in the Lord. I like, man, because my thing was, I like, man, look, I done been and lived in North Memphis. I done had guns put in my face. I've had stray bullets come through my house. And if, so I go through all that, and then I just, and some virus take me out, and then that was just God's will. It wasn't nothing I can do about that. You know what I'm saying? But in reality, and I joke and say that, but really, I just put my faith and trust in God to protect me. Like when the coronavirus came out, you got to wear a mask. You can't go here. You can't be 6 foot in about it. You better stop going to church. You better stop doing all this thing. And they want us to completely, basically stop living so we can protect ourselves. Well, I just put myself, my faith in God. Like when it happened, and since it happened, I didn't change anything that I did at first. The only thing I did do, and the only reason why I did it because everybody else was afraid. It wasn't even because I was afraid. It was because everybody else was afraid. I didn't go soul winning for a few months. And that was the first time that I've ever been, I think I went 3 months without soul winning because it really came down to like March. And I think it was so it was March or April when they finally quarantine and all that. And I think I waited till right before school started back in August before I went back soul winning. And the reason why, because I was like, if they gonna send them to school, then I can go out and knock on doors. You know what I'm saying? They feel it's safe enough for kids to go back to school because I got 5 kids, so they gonna bring it home anyway it go. So there ain't no point in me trying to avoid it anymore. I just gotta put my faith and trust in God to keep me safe and protected. So, like I said, that's the only thing I changed. I never stopped going to church. I couldn't go into jail because they wouldn't let me in, but I was still trying to go into jail. I was still going to church. I was still having my lost sheep ministry. Nothing changed. You know what I'm saying? Still going to Walmart without no mask and none of that. Why? Because I was putting my faith and trust in God to keep me protected. But more importantly, if I did get sick, I'll be healed. And that happened, 2022? And I just got the coronavirus for the first time a few weeks, about a month or so ago. About a month and a half ago, I got it for the first time. And even then, I was down bad for like 3 days, and I was right back to doing matter of fact, I think I started feeling bad. It was Tuesday night, after I had just had the Lost Sheep Ministry. Tuesday night, I started feeling bad. By the time I got home, I was feeling bad. That Wednesday, I was feeling bad enough to where I actually I left work a half a day and took a half a day at work. And that night, Wednesday night, it really hit me. So Wednesday night, it hit me. Thursday, it hit me. Friday morning, I got up and I went and worked out. You know what I'm saying? I went back to my regular routine. I worked out Friday. And the only reason why I couldn't go to work because they wouldn't let me go to work. You see what I'm saying? I put my faith and trust in God to heal me. But a lot of times we not do that. We want to go to these doctors and we want to pop these pills. We're so quick to pop a pill or to take a shot or get anything that they give us. We so quick to do all that, but we never think about asking God. Like even when I go to doctor, like when I went to I ended up having to take high blood pressure pills, what I did not want to do. But before I did, I prayed on it for the longest. You know what I'm saying? I didn't just go and just always give me the pill and let it take care of stuff. I prayed on it. I started changing my habits. I did everything I could. And one day I went to the doctor and it was just so high that my doctor like, man, look, he said, and he was cool with it. He was a cool dude. He was like, man, look, he said, you don't realize you probably having a mini stroke right now and don't even realize it. He said, how's your stuff is dangerous. He said, man, you got to think about your family and kids. He said, man, I really ask you to strongly consider taking this medicine. You know what I'm saying? And with just the way he presented it to me and the way they came about, I was like, all right, I tried. You know what I'm saying? And I started taking the high blood pressure medicine. But I didn't go there first. It took years for me to do that. And a lot of people, that's the first thing they want to do. They want to run to doctors and run to this and get on WebMD and all that instead of just praying to God, Lord, I got this situation going on. I need my help so I can do your work. Could you please heal me? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times we don't do that is because we don't have faith in God to heal us. We don't believe that He's Jehovah Rapha. That's God's name. Jehovah Jireh is the Lord provides. Jehovah Rapha is the Lord heals. You know what I'm saying? We don't believe in God as Jehovah Rapha because we think that's foolish. Man, we got all this technology and all this stuff. We just going to depend on that. All these doctors, these professors that know everything, we're going to depend on that instead of just going to the one that created us. If he created us and he put us together, then guess what? He can heal us as well. But to the world, that's foolish. And to the guy that we're going to look at this story, he thought the same thing. He thought it was foolish to believe the word of God about his healing, and he tried to do it himself. Let's go over to 2 Kings, another story in Kings, but this time we're in 2 Kings. Pretty cool story. We're going to look at this pagan guy. His name is Naaman. Naaman is, I guess is how you pronounce it. Over in 2 Kings chapter 5. If you follow along in your biblicals. So this guy is in the same situation. He's going to think this situation is food. Now, the situation is, this guy, he's like this high, it said the king of Aram had an administrator, the king of Aram had high admiration for Naaman, the commander of his army, because through him, the Lord had given Amram great victories. But though Naaman was a mighty warrior, he suffered from leprosy. Now, y'all got to know, leprosy was basically like a death sentence back in the day. Like, it was very contagious. I guess it would be like the AIDS of our day kind of thing, or something worse, something that you get, and once you get it, like, that's it. You're dead. I don't want to say COVID because it has a 99% survival rate. This stuff, if you got it, you were basically dead. There was no healing from it. There was no coming back from it. Once you got it, matter of fact, they even kicked you out of the towns. You had to live on the outskirts of towns if you had it. And you was basically like a disgrace. Like, you had to live by yourself. You was in permanent quarantine for the rest of your life until you basically it was like a skin disease that it pretty much, hold on, y'all. You basically rotted away. And I mean, it's a horrible way to die. I mean, basically this disease would get into your flesh and it would just eat your flesh up till eventually you die. You know what I'm saying? It was a very horrible way to die, and it was a long, slow process. So if you got this, you was done for. So this great general in his army, he had leprosy. You know what I'm saying? So he was a great general, had all the money in the world, you know what I'm saying, had access to every doctor there was, but he couldn't get healed. You know what I'm saying? Because there was no healing that can be done for this disease. All they can do is give you like drugs and stuff to make you comfortable. So watch what happened. So it says in verse, we're going to be verses 5, 8 through 14. Chapter 5, verses 8 through 14. So it says, let's see. Okay. So what happened was, it said, I don't know how I left all this out. So, basically what happened was this guy had an Israelite slave that was one of his captives. And, you know, he was talking about, you know, how he had a matter of fact, he said, so, right, I got to read this. It said, but though Naaman was a mighty warrior, he suffered from leprosy. Now, groups of Armenian raiders had invaded the land of Israel, and among their captives was a young girl who had been given to Naaman's wife as a maid. Now, one day the girl said to her mistress, I wish my master would go see the prophet in Samaria. He would heal him of his leprosy. So basically, you like, I wish he'd go to the preacher and let the preacher pray for him, because he go to the preacher be able to heal him, because the preacher's a man of God. So she was saying, so see, she was of the Israelites, so she was a person of God. She had faith in God. She knew the healing power of God, so she had faith in God. So she said, I wish my master would go there, because he would do that. So he listened. So it says, so Naaman told the king what the young girl from Israel said. Go and visit the prophet. The king told him, I will send a letter of introduction for you to carry to the king of Israel. So Naaman started out, taking his gift 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. So again, he was rich. He had access to all the doctors and the medicines, but nothing could help him. So then it said, the letter to the king of Israel said, with this letter I present my servant Naaman. I want you to heal him of his leprosy. Now, when the king of Israel read it, he tore his clothes in dismay and said, this man sends me a leper to heal. Am I God? And it's funny he said that, because God was the only one that can help him. So he said, am I God that I can kill and give life? He is only trying to find an excuse to invade us again. But when Elisha, the man of God, now here is what I had wrote down, said when Elijah, the man of God, heard about the king's reaction, he sent this message to him. Why are you so upset? Send Naaman to me, and he will learn that there is a true prophet here in Israel. So in other words, why do you not have faith? Why is your faith so little? You know what I'm saying? Send them to me. You know what I'm saying? Send them to me. Send them to the Lord, and the Lord can heal them. He's going to show you that I really am of God. Send them to me. You know what I'm saying? They were saying, why do you not have faith? You should have faith. You know that I serve God, and you know I'm here in this town. Why don't you just go ahead and send them to me? You know what I'm saying? Send them to me and I'm going to show you that I'm a real prophet. So watch what happens. So it says, so Naaman went with his horses and chariots and waited at the door of Elisha's home. But Elisha sent a messenger out to him with this message: go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River, then your skin will be restored and you will be healed of leprosy. What? That don't make no sense. Because, you know, of course, he expected him to come out and do some grand gesture. He didn't even come out and see him. Like, he didn't even come meet the guy. He just sent the messenger. He said, hey, go tell him to go wash yourself 7 times in the river. He'll be all right. Now, you got to understand, at this point, this dude has probably tried everything there was. He probably tried all kind of healing on because he had money. Everything that anybody told him to do, he probably has tried it. So he's washed himself, of course. You know what I'm saying? If it was something that simple, I would have been healed. So it can't be that simple. That's foolish. That seems foolish. And the reason why it's going to sound foolish to him, because he don't realize everything else he tried was of the world. This thing right here, this man of God, Elisha just told him to do, that was of God. You see what I'm saying? And that's why I say the world is when the world see you doing some stuff for God, they're like, man, that's foolish. You know what I'm saying? That's fool. Why would you put your faith? That's foolish. But this is of God, and watch what happened. Matter of fact, that he don't even think that. So he said, go wash 7 times, then your skin will be restored and you will be healed of leprosy. He said, but Naaman became angry and stalked away. I thought he would surely come out to at least meet me, he said. I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy and call on the name of the Lord, his God, and heal me. Aren't the Abana River and the Pharpar River of Damascus better than all the rivers of Israel put together? Why should I wash in them and be healed? So Naaman turned away and went away in a rage. In other words, this is foolish. Why the hell, I'm paraphrasing, why the hell would I go washing them nasty rivers? The rivers we got back home, is the water is cleaner than that. Why would I go washing this nasty river in Israel? You know what I'm saying? Because you got to think about it. They had conquered, they was over Israel at this time. Why would I go washing myself in that nasty water when I got this pure water back in the house? That's stupid. So he was pissed because what he was told to do was foolish, because he didn't believe in God. He didn't believe in the power of God. But luckily for him, he had somebody with him that was wise. So it says, but his officers tried to reason with him and said, sir, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, wouldn't you have done it? See, that's the problem. That's a lot of time why we miss out on the power of God and miss out on God in our life. Because we expect stuff to be all, magnificent. And we expect when God do something, the heavens going to open up and angels going to come down and sing songs and all that. And a lot of times the stuff that God do is just simple little things that he does to get us by. And the thing was so simple that he thought it was foolish to believe it. Why am I going to do to just go wash myself? I could have been dead there. That's nothing. Why would I go wash myself? But so his officer reason, like, man, if he told you to do some great thing, you would have did it, right? He like, yeah. So he said, so shouldn't you certainly obey when he says to simply just go and wash and be cured? You know what I'm saying? In other words, why is this so foolish? And he told you to do some great, mighty thing, go, fight a dragon or something. You would have been easily wouldn't have done that. But the man told you to simply just go and wash yourself and be healed, and you won't do it. You know what I'm saying? That's foolish. That's foolish. But he thinking what the man of God told him to do is foolish. So luckily for him, he had some wise people that was with him that was willing to look foolish, and they convinced him to do it. So watch what happened. So he said, so you should certainly obey him when he says simply go and wash and be cured. So in verse 14 it says, so Naaman went down to the Jordan River and dipped himself 7 times as the man of God had instructed him, and his flesh became as healthy as a young child's, and he was healed. You see what I'm saying? Because he was foolish. He didn't want to, at first, he didn't want to look like no fool. I'm not going to go down there and put myself in this filthy water when we got this nice clean water. He didn't want to do it, but his somebody with him, his slave, the one that got him to go first of all, and then one of his other officers has enough wisdom, like, man, if this is of God, you need to do this. It may sound foolish. But I trust God, and I think you should trust God. And if you trust God, he'll take care of this situation. And what did he do? He trusted God. Even though he thought it was foolish, he trusted God, and what happened? It says, and his flesh became as healthy as a young child's, and he was healed. See, are you willing to do the same thing? Yes, we all go through health problems, and some God might hear. I say all the time, when you got a health problem, you got something you're going through, you got to understand God is going to heal you one way or another, whether it's on this side of this door called death or on the other side. You know what I'm saying? He might heal you while you're still in this world, but when you go through that door called death, you get that perfect body, so you're definitely going to be healed. There is no sickness there. You know what I'm saying? That's if you have your faith in the Lord. Make sure you save so you get to go through that door called death and go to eternity on the other side. But if you go over there and actually look over in the Corinthians and all that, well, the main thing Paul is talking about, getting that new body. That new body ain't going to get sick. That new body ain't going to break down. You see what I'm saying? So you're going to get healed one way or another. But are you willing to put your faith in the Lord to heal you? You know what I'm saying? Or do you think it's foolish? This Naaman, he thought it was foolish. The Lord told him exactly what he needed to do to get healed, and he thought it was foolish, went away throwing a fit because he didn't come out and do something special. But when his officer convinced him, look, the Lord said do it, go ahead and do it. You know what I'm saying? And he listened, and he went down, and he got healed, and came back, and the skin was healthy. Now, some other stuff happened after that, but I just want to use the example to see how foolish it sounds to put your faith in the Lord. How foolish it might sound to the world. You sound foolish when you put your faith in the Lord to protect you from coronavirus. You sound foolish when you put your faith in the Lord to heal you of this cancer. It sounds foolish to put your faith in the Lord to heal you of whatever sickness or whatever ails your body. But if you put your faith in the Lord for him to do it, like I said, you're going to be healed. I'm not saying that, you're going to automatically be healed on this side like he was. It might not happen for you. You know what I'm saying, on this side. But it's definitely going to happen for you on the other side if you have that faith in the Lord. Are you willing to do so? So that was number 8. Number 9. I'm getting I can't see, I'm sorry, I can't see my little time thing, so I don't know how long I'm going, so I'm trying not to go too long. I got 2 more, and then we'll be done. Number 9. So number 9 is this. So number 6 was, are you willing to, turn my page. Number 6, are you willing to give up worldly things because it interferes with you doing God's work? Number 7, are you willing to put your faith in God to provide? Number 8, are you willing to put your trust in God for healing? And number 9, are you willing to completely trust God for your protection? Are you willing to really completely trust God for your protection? You know what I'm saying? Are you willing to do this? So many times we feel that's why we got so many weapons. That way we got guns and pepper spray and knives and all this stuff. All these things we have, because we feel like we got to protect ourselves, especially right now, what's going on now in the Ukraine. Everybody's losing their freaking mind. You almost can't even buy a gun anywhere without having to pay an arm and a leg for it, because people put their faith and trust in them guns to protect them instead of putting their faith and trust in God. You know what I'm saying? That's something I've had a conversation when I was selling dope. It's so weird. When I was selling dope, before I gave my life to God, I had a gun. I had a 45 Toro. It was actually clean. It was like something from a Nicolas Cage movie, because it was like a 45. The handle of it was made out of pearl, and like all the buttons and the switches and everything on the actions and the triggers and all that, it was gold, and the barrel and the gun itself, the frame of the gun, it was chrome. So, I mean, it was a beautiful gun. You know what I'm saying? It was nice. I only got it because it looked so cool. And the whole time I was selling dope, I walked around with the thing all the darn time. And the first thing I did when I gave my life to God, not only did I give all the drugs away, I went and sold that gun. Because I realized this whole time I've been trying to put my trust in myself to protect me, when in reality I should be putting my faith and trust in God. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not one of them guys like, I hate guns and you shouldn't have them. If you feel you need it, there's more power to you. You know what I'm saying? If you think that's going to protect you. But I know of several instances, and anybody that especially from the hood, know of several instances where people died with their gun in their hand. They died with their guns in their holster. That gun is not going to determine whether you're going to make it home at night or not. What's going to determine whether you're going to make it home at night or not is you have the grace of God on you. And that's what you have to understand. You got to put your faith and trust in God to protect you, not your faith and trust in the gun. And there's so many people that put their faith and trust in their gun. You know what I'm saying? I know somebody in my family don't go nowhere without his gun. You know, he taking a shower, gun right there. You know what I'm saying? On the toilet, right there, gun on his lap. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because he got more faith and trust in that gun than he do more faith and trust in that gun to protect them than he has for God to protect them. Which one are you going to do? Are you going to put your faith? Because I always tell people, people like, well, how you feel? I said, man, look, the way I feel about gun is I don't have to have one on me at all time. And I feel like if I'm in a situation where I need a gun, God is going to provide one. And if God don't provide one, then I must not have needed one. And even if something bad happened to me, that was part of God's will. Because we got to understand, if you put your faith and trust in God to protect you, that's from everything. And if something's coming and God can protect you from it, I guarantee you no gun is not going to protect you from it. Matter of fact, if God can't protect you from it, then a nuclear missile won't even be able to protect you from it if it's that big and bad. And of course, we know there's nothing in existence that's going to challenge God. So why are we so hell-bent on protecting ourselves and not letting God protect us? You see what I'm saying? Because they treat you, oh, you gotta have 4 or 5 guns. You gotta have guns here. You gotta do this. You gotta do that. No, just do God's work. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and the rest of these things will be added to you. You know what I was talking to my brother about this week? Man, he ain't scared to go over there and knock on them doors, and you never know. I said, man, look, when I'm over there, what's going to happen is going to happen. All I know is what I'm doing, I'm in God's will. So I know I'm protected. So again, that don't mean nothing can't happen. It does mean that if something do happen, it was in God's will, and I wasn't going to be able to avoid it anyway. There was nothing I'm going to be able to do about it anyway. And that's just that's truly how I look, because I put my faith and trust in God to protect me. You see what I'm saying? And He's all about His guns. There's people, they got guns, you go to their house, they guns everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Stockpiling guns because they think those guns are going to protect them. But like I said, at the end of the day, what's going to determine whether you're going to make it back to your house at night or make it through the night safely is if you got the presence of God, if the protection of God is on you. And I truly believe it. Because y'all remember over in Job, and we're not looking at Job for this example. Matter of fact, we're going to go over to Daniel. We'll look at another story there. And there was so many examples that I could have used for this, but I want to use this one because I told you I love the book of Daniel, and this is another story I love. Let's go over to Daniel chapter 3. Book of Daniel chapter 3, we're going to read verses 8 through 30. I love this, one of my favorite stories, and I did this before on here. We're going to read verses 8 through 30. But I was talking about Job. You remember when the devil was trying to get at Job? What did he do? He asked God, no, if you let me touch him, I promise he'll curse you to your face. And he had to get permission to put his hand on Job. He had to get permission to do those things from God that he had to do those things that he did to Job. And God gave him that permission. So had God said no, there would have been the end of it. But God wanted to see what Job was going to do. He wanted to actually see was Job really the man of faith he believed he was, because he was bragging on Job. You see what I'm saying? So God has a wall of protection around us. If you have your faith and trust in the Lord, He has that wall of protection around you. But to the world, you a fool. Man, you ain't got no gun. You stupid. Man, they bombing Ukraine. There's a war going on in Ukraine right now. At any moment, Russia can start, and China could come over here and people start dropping out of the sky. If you ain't got no gun, you stupid. You know what I'm saying? You foolish to the world. But again, I put my faith and trust in God to protect me. I put my faith and trust in God to help me make it back home from work. You know what I'm saying? I told y'all before, the job I do, I can die any day. You know what I'm saying? We mess with some dangerous stuff every single day. And any day there can be an accident and I can be gone. I put my faith and trust. You know, yeah, I wear my fireproof clothes that I wear while I'm working. But my faith and trust in God for me to get me back home to my family at the end of the day. What are you going to put your faith and trust in? You going to put it in your gun and yourself, or you going to put it in the Lord? And we're going to see here in this example where these 3 young men, they're going to put their faith and trust in God. I love this story. So I'm going to be in Daniel chapter 3, verses 8 through 30. Chapter 3. So we got this situation. Again, I'm explaining the situation so I don't have to read through the whole story. But the situation comes up. We got this King Nebuchadnezzar. He's going around. He's conquering everything. And he starts feeling himself. So he's feeling himself to a point where he made this gold statue. And now this statue, it was made out of pure gold. It was 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. So it was huge. So he makes the statue, get it set up. Once the statue finally finished, commission or whatever, he makes a decree that everybody in the kingdom have to come and worship the statue. He said there's going to be some point, some music going to start. And when that music starts, then you got to bow down and worship the statue. Now, of course, you know, if you do that, that's worshiping idols. So we got these 3 young dudes here, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were Daniel's brothers. They knew that they couldn't do that, because if they did that, it would be going against what God told them to do. So again, y'all remember, just like I was talking about in the last lesson, when the king told if they pray, they were going to get thrown in the lion's den. Well, here, if they don't worship this statue, they're going to get thrown in this fiery furnace. You know what I'm saying? And again, that is a viable threat. That ain't something that where it may happen, or if you don't do what the king said, you was going in this furnace. So that's the situation they in, but they knew there was something that they couldn't do because they put their faith in God. So watch this. So start over here. So he said some of the, he says, I don't know why I started so far up. So basically, going through what it says, so you got the statue set up. In verse 5, it says, when you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, and I'm going to mispronounce some of these things, the harp, the pipes, and other instruments, bow to the ground to worship the king Nebuchadnezzar's gold statue. Anyone who refuses to obey will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. So that's the threat. They got the statue. Y'all got to bow down and worship this statue, or you're going into the fire. You know what I'm saying? So it says, at the sound of the musical instruments, all the people, so everybody did it. All the people, whatever their race or nation or language, bowed to the ground and they worshiped the statue the king Nebuchadnezzar had set up. It said, but some of the astrologers, in other words, those into witchcraft, went to the king and informed on the Jews, snitched on them. Informed them Jews. They said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, long live the king. Now again, y'all gotta remember, if y'all remember from when we went to Daniel, they was jealous of these boys, because these boys were Hebrews, they were slaves, but because they had put their faith and trust in God, God elevated them to the top of the kingdom, and they're gonna get elevated even more after this situation. So it says, it went and snitched on them, long live the king. You issued a decree requiring all the people to bow down and worship the gold statue when they hear the sound of the musical instruments. That decree also states that those who refuse to obey must be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews, again, snitching on them. There are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you have put in charge over the whole province of Babylon. So you see the jealousy there. You made these dudes powerful, and it said they have defied your majesty by refusing to serve your gods or to worship the gold statue that you have set up. Snitching on them. Why? Because they was doing what God told them to do instead of what the world wanted them to do. So then it said, now check this out. The king is pissed. So it said, then Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage and ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be brought before him. When they were brought in, Nebuchadnezzar said to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the gold statue I have set up? I will give you one more chance. Maybe you messed up. I'm going to give you one more chance. And if you bow down and worship the statue I have made, when you hear the sound of the musical instruments, all will be well. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And listen to what he say. This is how cocky he is. What God would be able to rescue you from my power then? So you see, you know why he made that statement? Because he knew they was putting their faith and trust in God to protect him. He knew that's why they was defying him, because they was trusting in the Lord. So he tried to make them feel bad about it. You know what I'm saying? If I'm gonna give you one more chance. Maybe you didn't hear me clearly. Maybe you made a mistake. I'm gonna give you one more chance. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't, if you don't do what I say, you don't bow down to the statue when you hear that music, you going into the fire, and there's no God gonna be able to protect you. Because he knew they was trusting in the Lord to protect him, and that's why he made this statement. But here's one of my favorite lines in the Bible, y'all, right here. Listen how they respond. This is how you will respond if you fully trust in the Lord to protect you. So in verse 16, it says, so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. We don't got to protect ourselves before you. We are thrown into the blazing furnace. Listen what they said. This shows you what they trusted. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. Now get this. He said, but even if he doesn't, your majesty can be sure that we would never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up. Oh, y'all got to understand how gangster that is. Because first of all, they're talking to the king. This man literally have authority over their life. This is a true life and death situation. This man has authority over their life, and talking to the king, he's already upset. And you gotta understand, it ain't like they off in a room somewhere by themselves and they saying this to the king and the king can let it slide. They in front of the whole nation, basically. Everybody that's somebody right now is in front of the king, all his officers and everybody. And you got these 3 slaves defying you. And not only did they not bow down and worship like you said, they told you to your face that they would never do it. That is gangster. You got these dudes want to be gangster and all that. That is gangster right there. But what they say, they said, again, notice what they said. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. See, they was fully trusting in the Lord to protect them. You know what I'm saying? They was fully. Now, again, notice what else he said. He said, even if he doesn't, Your Majesty can be sure that we will never serve your God. So again, they was fully trusting the Lord. So they knew that even though they were trusting in the Lord's protection, that don't mean something couldn't happen. That don't mean they still could have went in that fire and died. But even so, they still put their faith and trust in God that was going to part of his will. If it was in his will for them to go into that furnace and die so they don't defile him, then so be it. That's what they were saying. We're going to trust our God to protect us. But even while we trust in our God to protect us, if something still happens, that still ain't going to make us lose our faith in him. This must be a part of his will. And that's what I was telling my brother when I go out there. I'm like, man, when I'm out there in a project, my faith is in God to protect me. That's not saying that it can't be a shootout or something and I get to catch a straight bullet. That's not saying that. But whatever happens is going to happen anyway. Matter of fact, I mentioned this earlier. One time we was going soul winning projects in Nashville with this church that I'm at now. We was going soul winning, and literally we walked off the bus and we didn't even take 20 steps and we started hearing gunfire. And it sounded like about 2 buildings over from us. Pow, 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 pow. And I never forget, it was so funny because both of my sons, these were my kids, were younger. I think it was like the second year we was up here, so they was much younger. So this was about 5-6 years ago. And one of my sons, he went and ducked behind some bushes. And I'm like, boy, get your butt. And I just kept walking. Like, boy, get your butt behind them bushes. Them bullets come that way, them bushes not going to protect you. You know what I'm saying? So I just thought they were funny. But, you know what I'm saying, we could have easily got back on the bus and went, oh, it's too safe. No, we just went on and knocked on doors like nothing would have happened. It was literally a shootout 2 buildings away from where we was at, and we went out and knocked on doors in the opposite direction. Why? Because we were fully trusting the Lord to protect us, and that's what these boys did. They put it, look, King, I don't care what you say, I don't care what you do. I know I serve a God that can protect me. And even if he don't protect me, I'm still not going to serve your God. So watch what happened. I love it. Coach said, now I'm trying to see what my time is. I hate that it's not up there. So it said Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage, and he commanded that the furnace be heated 7 times harder than usual. Then he ordered some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So they tied them up, threw them into the furnace fully clothed, and because the king in his anger had demanded such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames leaped out and killed the soldiers as they threw the 3 men in. So, I mean, it was already hot enough where it was at to kill a person and burn them up. But he was so upset that he wanted to make him prove his point so bad that he made him heat it up 7 times hotter than it already was. And it said it was so hot that when the 3 dudes went to throw him in, they died. That's how hot it was. So it says, so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell down into the roaring flames. But suddenly, as he was watching, Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the fire? Yes, they said, we did indeed, your majesty. And verse 25, this is he said, look, Nebuchadnezzar shouted, I see 4 men unbound walking around in the fire, and they aren't even hurt by the flames, and the 4th look like a divine being. Now, right there, that does that no justice. We got to go to the King James Version on that, because that does it no justice. It actually says in verse 25, it said, he answered and said, lo, I see 4 men loose walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. What happened? They put their faith and trust in God, and Jesus himself showed up and rescued him. And this is Old Testament. A lot of people, it's so fun when people say they don't like to read the Old Testament because it's not about Jesus. Jesus himself showed up and pulled these guys out of the fire because they put their faith and trust in God. You see what I'm saying? They put their faith and trust in God to protect them. They didn't try to protect themselves from the fire. They didn't try to go put on some special suits or something like that, some special dashiki. They put their faith and trust in God to protect them. And Jesus himself showed up and pulled them out of the fire. Why? Because they fully trusted the Lord. They fully trusted the Lord. Then it says, so then Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God. Now, if you look, that's all capitalized. So they're not talking about some little G God. They're talking about the real God. They realized they were dealing with the real God. He said, come out and come here. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. Then the princes, the prefects, the governors, and advisors crowded around them and saw that the fire had not touched them. Not a hair on their heads was singed, and their clothing was not scorched, and they didn't even smell of smoke. So then Nebuchadnezzar said, praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angels to rescue his servants who trusted in him. See what I'm saying? They trusted in him, and they defied the king's command and were willing to die rather than serve or worship any god except their own. So in other words, he realized that because they trusted in him for their protection, the Lord did come and protect them. So instead of listening to the world, they listened to their spirit and they followed God and they got protected. He said, therefore, I make this decree. If any people, whatever their race or nation or language, speak a word against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they will be torn limb from limb and their houses will be crushed into heaps of rubble. There is no other God who can rescue like this. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to even higher positions in the province of Babylon. Why? Because that faith within God was in God. So not only did they get protection, look at what happened here. They got protected because they put their faith and trust in God. The unsaved people started believing in God and they got elevated in rank. All because they put their faith and trust in God to protect them and not themselves. Are you willing to do the same? See what I'm saying? That's what you're saying. The world, they thought it was foolish. Even the king, boy, y'all are foolish. Yeah? You must not have heard, because you're a fool to think that you're not going to get thrown in this fire if you don't do what I say. That's foolish for you not to do so, because you know this is a viable threat. The world thought they was foolish, but what happened? These men of God knew that the best way for them to protect themselves was to keep their faith in the Lord. And because of that, they got protected. The unsaved people believed, and guess what? They got elevated. Not only here, I guarantee you they got elevated in the kingdom of God as well. They got their reward. It wasn't an earthly, they got earthly rewards and they got spiritual reward. All because they put their faith and trust in God to protect them and not themselves. Are you willing to do the same? Are you foolish enough like these boys was? That was foolish. They was looking at the furnace. They could see the furnace. They knew what was about to go on, and yet they still trusted God. And because they did, the Lord showed up in a mighty way, protected them. Got unsaved people started believing, and they got elevated, all because they put their faith and trust in God. Are you willing to do the same? Are you willing to put your faith and trust in the Lord? And I know I'm way over my time, y'all, but I got one more. I should have made this a 3-part series. I knew it was gonna take this long. So I apologize to y'all. I really should have probably did 3. I didn't think it was taking me that long. But I've been getting it. I just love this because it shows you, again, that was a foolish thing for them to do. They knew their life was being threatened. They could see the flames of the furnace, and yet they still trusting in God. And again, the king, the world wanted to make them think it was done for them doing it. That's why he gave them another chance. But yet they still put their faith and trust in the Lord, and the Lord showed up and protect them in a mighty way. You see what I'm saying? Most of the stuff we do to serve the Lord is foolish to this world. But when you're a man of faith, you know there's no other way to live. There's nothing else to go by. There's nothing else in this world I'd rather put my faith and trust in than the word of God. So the last one, number 10. Number 10, I'm trying to speak. And I don't want to speak to it because it's a good one. But last 10 is this. Are you willing to fight the Lord's battles? Are you willing to fight God's battle? Are you willing to get into it and to go up against the world to fight the Lord's battles? Are you willing to do that? Because you got to understand, if it's the Lord's battle, there's got to be a pretty big enemy for the Lord to consider him an enemy. You see what I'm saying? Because you got to understand, when you out here, when I'm preaching, when I'm doing this, when I'm out soul winning, I'm fighting God's battle. I'm actively participating in a spiritual war. And that's what y'all got to understand. Everybody worried about that war that's going on in Ukraine right now, when in reality, they should be worried about this war that's going on in the spiritual realm right now, because we're all in the middle of it. And every decision that we make determines which side are we going to fight on. When you make the decision to do what you want to do, then guess what? You fighting for the devil. But when you make a decision to do what you're supposed to be doing, then guess what? You fighting God's battle. Are you willing to fight the battle of God? And the only way you can do that is by having a close relationship with God. Making sure you save first of all, but putting your faith and trust in the Lord to fight his battles. And we're going to see somebody that do that. We're going to look at David, one of my favorite guys from the Bible. We're going to go over to 1 Samuel chapter 16. And we're going to end here. We're going to go look at this last story. And it's a familiar story that everybody knows. Everybody knows about this story because it was when David really first came on the scene. And it's the story of David and Goliath. David and Goliath. He in this situation. So 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 32 through 51 is what I'm reading through. So it says, 32 to 51. So verse 32. So of course, okay, so you got to get a little bit of background. So Israel's at war with the Philistines. They in the situation where the Philistines have set up, drew their battle line, and they on their side of the field, so to speak. and then the Israelites on their side of the field. So this guy, this giant comes out. This dude is like a champion, probably been in war since he was, fighting in war since he was a teenager. A young man, teenager comes out. He's this giant. They give a description of how huge he is. And what he's doing, he basically started cursing Israel out and started disrespecting God. You know what I'm saying? So the Israelites see him, they so afraid that they run away from him. So they say it's for 40 days, this man, day and night, he comes out and curses out God and basically blaspheme and disrespect God. This goes on for 40 days. And they came out and basically he gave the Israelites a challenge. He said, look, instead of all of us fighting and everybody dying, why don't y'all send somebody out to fight me? You know what I'm saying? If that person come out and fight me and he win, then, you know what I'm saying, we'll surrender to you. Us and all the Philistines will surrender to you. But if they come out and fight me and I win, then y'all got to surrender to us. So he came out every day, twice a day. It says he did it morning and evening, and he made this challenge, and he basically cursed God out every day. He did it for 40 days, and nobody had the courage to go and challenge this guy. So finally, one day, David, his dad sent them because his brothers was in the army. So his dad sent them out and said, hey, go check on his brothers, take them these supplies. So while he's out there checking on his brothers, he see this dude come out and start cursing out God and making this challenge. And he see that when this dude come out and start doing it, everybody runs away. So David get upset about it. So he started asking around about it. And I'm actually going to start up in verse 28. So he started asking around about it, like what's going on. So then it said, when David's older brother, Eliab, heard David talking to the men, because again, David was asking questions about, because the guy, the king had said that whoever does this, you can get to marry one of my daughters, and I'm going to give you this and this and that. So when so David started questioning around to see if that was true. So he said, his brother saw him doing it. So his brother went to him and said, when he heard David talking to the men, he was angry. He said, what are you doing around here anyway? He demanded. What about those few sheep you're supposed to be taking care of? I know about your pride and dishonesty, and you just want to see the battle. Now, David said, what have I done now? David replied, I was only asking a question. Now, again, that's a situation where that does not translate. It takes so much power away from that statement that David made right there. So we got to read the King James Version. David said, he told David, I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mayest see the battle. And David said, what have I done now? Is there not a cause? Is there not a reason? Why is nobody else being offended by this dude running his mouth and cursing God out? Is there not a cause? This dude is disrespecting God. By disrespecting y'all supposed to be the army of God. He disrespecting y'all, so he disrespecting God. And is there not a cause? See, he is this God. He wanted to defend his God because he loved this God. He wanted to fight God's battle because he loved this God. So then he said he walked over to some others and asked them the same thing and received the same answer. Then David's question was reported to King Saul, and the king sent for him. So when he went to Saul, he said, don't worry about a thing, David told Saul. I'll go and fight this man. And watch what Saul say. Verse 33, don't be ridiculous, Saul replied. There is no way you can go against this Philistine. You are only a boy, and he has been in the army since he was a boy. In other words, don't be a fool. It ain't no way you can beat this dude. You're being foolish. There's no way you can go out and fight this dude. This dude has been in war since he was a boy. You're only a boy, and he's been in war since he was a boy. There's no way. And you got to understand, David wasn't a warrior. He wasn't in the army at this time. He was just a dude that watched sheep every day. But he had his faith in his God. You see what I'm saying? He had faith in God. And watch what David's saying. David persisted. I have been taking care of my father's sheep, he said. When a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and take the club from the lamb from his mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I have done this to both lions and bears, and here you go. And I do it to this pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. He wanted to go out and fight God. Now, again, this dude was huge. The actual army guys, the guy that was actually in the army was afraid of this dude. But this dude that wasn't even in the army came up and said, man, he's disrespecting my God. I'm going to fight that battle. Don't even worry. Matter of fact, not only am I going to fight it, I'm going to win. So then he said, the Lord who saved me, and this is why. He said, because the Lord who saved me from the claws of the lion and the bear will save me from this Philistine. So Saul finally consented. All right, go ahead, he said, and may the Lord be with you. So, all right, you the fool. If you want to take your butt out there and do it, go ahead, have at it. You know what I'm saying? But the whole time, like, man, this boy about to go get killed. This boy's foolish. Why? Because he didn't understand the love that God, the David had for the Lord, and he didn't understand the Lord that the love that the Lord had for David as well. Because David had a close relationship with the Lord, because he trusted, just like we talking about in verse number 9, he was trusting in the Lord to protect him. He said, the Lord who saved me from the claws of the lion and the bear will save me from this Philistine. And he knew the Lord was going to protect him because he was fighting God's battle. Just like I was talking about, when I go into projects, I know the Lord's going to protect me because I'm over there fighting God's battles. Do you trust the Lord to protect you, and do you trust him enough to fight his battles? So watch what happened. So they give him all his armor and stuff, and he says, I can't go in these. And I'm trying to, because I'm way over my time, so I hate I got to cut it a little short. But he says, they give him all his armor, and he tested it out. He didn't like it. So he tells him, he said, I can't go in these. He protested, I'm not used to them. So he took them off again, picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream, and put them in his shepherd's bag. Then, armed only with his shepherd's staff and sling, he started across to fight Goliath. Now, Goliath walked out toward David with his, now you got to understand. Now, watch what, now David, all he had on his regular clothes, he had his stick, his shepherd's staff, which is basically a stick in his hand, and he had a slingshot with 5 rocks in his bag. That's all he had. Now, watch what Goliath had. It said, now Goliath walked out toward David with his shield bearer ahead of him, sneering in contempt at this ruddy-faced boy. Am I a dog, he roared at David, that you come at me with a stick? And he cursed David by the name of his gods. Come over here and I give your flesh to the birds and wild animals, Goliath yelled. So David going to him, all he got is like I said, a stick in his hand and 5 rocks in his bag, regular clothes on. But Goliath is coming to David. He got a shield, he got a spear, he got a sword, he got armor on to protect him, and he's going against David. And David ain't even afraid. Watch what David say. It said, David shouted in reply, you come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. You see what I'm saying? He was fighting God's war. Sorry about that. He said, today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head, and then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone now, he's not being cocky. He knows that he's going to do this. He's not being cocky. He's not being arrogant. He knows God is going to protect him, and he knows he's going to win his battle because it's God's battle. Because he says it in verse 17. He said, I'm going to give all you and kill all your men, get their bodies, and everybody in the whole world will know there is a God in Israel. And everyone will know that the Lord does not need weapons to rescue his people. It is his battle, not ours. The Lord will give you to us. And that's what we got to understand, man. When we out here doing this work for God, we're fighting God's battle. When you decide that you're going to read your Bible every day, when you decide that you're going to go to church, when you're going to decide we're going to go out there and knock on doors and take the gospel to people, when you decide that you can go into the jails and preach the gospel to people, when you decide you're going to get on Facebook and do sermons, you're fighting God's battle. You got to fight God's battle. And it might look foolish to the world. You know what I'm saying? Even his own people, like, man, you stupid. There ain't no way in the world you can go out there and win that battle. It's too big for you. You know what I'm saying? I told y'all, and I said it earlier, I want to be that 100% man. My goal is to literally save the world. And I know it ain't no way in the world I can do that on my own, but with God, anything is possible. And that's what Dave was saying. You know what I'm saying? I'm finna win this battle because this is God's battle. This is not my battle. I'm not coming out here for my glory. I'm not coming out here to protect myself. I'm coming out here to represent my God. That's why I know I'm going to win. So then what happened? So it says, as Goliath moved closer to attack, David ran quickly out to meet him. Reaching into his shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it from his sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sunk in, and Goliath stumbled and fell face down to the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine giant with only a stone in his sling. And since he had no sword, he ran over and pulled Goliath's sword from his sheath, and David used it to kill the giant and cut his head off. Is that not what I was just saying up there in number 9? This dude had the shield. He had the shield. He had the spear. Which is javelin. He had a sword. He had all this stuff and still lost. And David used his sword to cut his head off. Why? Because he was trusting in the Lord to protect him, and he knew that he was fighting the Lord's battle. He wasn't being arrogant and cocky when he was saying he was going to win. He knew he was being confident in the power of the Lord because he knew what God had done for him before. Are we willing to do the same? Are we willing to go out and fight the Lord's battles so we can show the world that there truly is a God? Because that's what David said. The world, after this, the world is going to know that there truly is a God in Israel. You know You know what I'm saying? The world is going to know that God still sits on the throne. Are you wouldn't do the same? When you go out there and you go soul winning and you telling people about the Lord and you winning people to the Lord and you helping people straighten their lives up and you helping people get captive from the things that got them captive, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or women, when you're out there doing those things, it shows the world that there is a God. Because when you're doing those things, you're fighting God's battles. So when you get those victories are of the Lord. And that's what you want to do. You want to fight God's battle so you can help God build his kingdom. And that's what David was willing to do. And that's why the Lord said David was a man after his own heart. Are you willing to do the same thing? Are you willing to fight the Lord's battles? How do you fight the Lord's battle? By doing the things that the Lord has for you to do. So I'm going ahead and conclude this because I'm way over my time, y'all. I do apologize, but I hope y'all been enjoying this. I hope it ain't just me running my mouth. You're like, man, hope this thing dude's done. I hope you seeing some things in your life that you're not doing. You know what I'm saying? I hope you're seeing that there's some pride in your heart that's keeping you from doing the things that God has for you to do. So I'm going to close with this question. Are you willing to act a fool for the Lord? Because there's some things you're going to do to serve the Lord, to show the Lord that you truly serve it, that's going to look foolish to the world. You know what I'm saying? If so, you're going to have to follow God's will. That looks foolish. To follow God, do what God wants to do, because God always takes you somewhere you don't want to be, in a place that you're not comfortable in. Are you going to be willing to spend time in God's word every day? Reading this 2,000-year-old book. Are you going to do that every day? Are you going to pray without ceasing, no matter what the cost? Are you going to go soul winning? It's foolish going knocking on people's doors, talking about Jesus, but it works. It works. Number 5, are you going to put your faith in the bigness of God? Number 6, will you give up the worldly thing that keeps you from serving God, from doing God's work? Number 7, are you going to put your faith in God to provide? Number 8, are you going to trust God, trust in God for your healing? Number 9, are you going to trust in God for your protection? And number 10, will you fight the Lord's battles? Now, if you do these things, you will truly be acting a fool for the Lord. And the reason why I say that, and I'm going to end with this quote, once again, I'm going to go back over to 1 Corinthians. Because to the world, that is foolish. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, I know very well how foolish the message of the cross sounds to those who are on the road to destruction. And once again, over in verse 25, he says, was 25, he says this, this foolish plan of God is far wiser than the wisest of human plans, and God's weakness is far stronger than the greatest of human strength. Are you willing to be foolish enough to serve the Lord? So I thank y'all for joining me tonight. Thank you, Pat, for hanging in the whole time, bro. I appreciate you. You know, look like everybody else. I don't know if they just did not completely checked in or whatnot, but you hung in there with me. Like I said, I went way over my time because I can't see my time. I would have structured my points a little bit more. But man, I thank y'all for joining me. And again, but more importantly, I pray that helped you. I pray you realize that yes, if you're looking at it from the word's point of view, Sister Rhonda, I guess you're still in here. I just can't see your little bubble up here. But I hope you realize that if you're really looking at things from a word's point of view, if you're going to serve the Lord, you're going to look foolish. But again, you got to focus on not what the world sees and what the world perception of it. You got to look at God's perception. Because when the world see you doing these things for God, they're going to look at you as being a fool. But when God see you doing these things for him, he's going to look at you as being a faithful servant. And that's where you want to be in the eyes of God. You want to hear it when you go through that door called death. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. So I thank y'all for joining me. I'm going to do these announcements, do a quick prayer, get out of here because I'm way over my time. As always, if there's anything in particular y'all want me to talk about, certain story I haven't covered yet, please let me know. This was the last one of my few weeks. You know, I told y'all we got away from Judges. So God willing, if nobody inbox me about anything else, I'm going to go back to Judges next week. We're going to start the life of Samson. And I want to get all this done before we get into Samson, because Samson is like 4 chapters long. So it's going to probably be like at least a 3-week long lesson to go through the life of Samson. So we'll be back there next week, God willing, next Monday at 7 o'clock. Keep sharing the videos, telling others about the videos. Like I told y'all earlier, that story from Missouri, that's just amazing. And like I said, I don't know who the people are. I don't know if they're on my friends list or whatever. I have no clue. So that's amazing. So y'all keep sharing the videos so it can get out there and these videos can reach the people that need to hear them so they can build a relationship with God. If you're not sure, you're watching this, you're not 100% sure about your salvation, reach out to me and let me know so I can schedule some time to go over the gospel with you so you can know for sure that when you die, you're going to heaven. And, of course, if you need any kind of spiritual counseling, got any questions or anything like that, I always never be afraid to reach out to me and let me know. And as always, You want to check out my sermons and you don't feel like scrolling through all the mess on Facebook to find them. It's a lot easier to find them here. Go to my YouTube page. It's my YouTube channel, God's Servant / Lost Sheep Ministries. Type it in just like that with a space between each one, and it'll take you right to my channel. So again, thank y'all for joining me tonight. I hope y'all enjoyed this lesson. But more importantly, I hope when y'all go through this lesson and read these points, and I hope you'll rewatch them and realize that there's some things you can be doing, be acting a fool for the Lord as well, so you can do your part to build this kingdom. So I thank y'all for joining me. I'm going to pray and I'm going to get out of here. Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, thank you so much for watching over us tonight. Thank you once again for giving me this foolish notion to do these sermons and spend all this time talking about, read this old book, talking about you, Lord. I'm so grateful that I was able to put my pride aside, not be worried about what the world think or what the world is going to think of me or what my friends are going to think of me, and be more concerned with what you're going to think of me and what I can do to build your kingdom. I'm so grateful for you putting this word in my heart. I'm so grateful to you for all you've done for me and my family. And I'm so grateful for you calling me to do this wonderful work. And I just pray you just continue to watch over us all. Let the words that were spoken here tonight, I went way over, Lord, and I do apologize about that because I try to keep them shorter so people will pay attention. But I pray that they will be willing to watch these videos and watch them in their entirety and receive the wisdom for it, Lord, so the word can sink into their heart and they can use them to humble themselves, Lord, but more importantly, do the work that you have for them to do. Even though it might look foolish to the world, let them help them see that it's important because it looks so good to you. And that's how they get to hear that statement, well done, I got a good and faithful servant, when they go through that door called death. We pray you watch over the church, River Lake Baptist Church, continue to help it grow and prosper, reach out to the community, change the lives of others, capture lost souls and men. And I pray you be with this ministry so it can continue to grow and prosper, reach out to the community, change the lives, capture lost souls and men, and build a community as well. Be with all the members, all those that you've given me responsibility of, Lord, and just be with me and my family. Continue to use us in a mighty way and give us the encouragement and enthusiasm we need to continue to go forth doing your work. We love you so very much. Watch over this country, Lord, and just be with this situation in the Ukraine. My heart does go out to those people and that war that they're going through right now. But I pray, more important than that, Lord, not that it's not important, not going through things, but I pray that we help this lesson will help us see how important it is for us to do our part to fight the spiritual war, because it has much more dire consequences if we don't win in the end, which we know you are, because we read the end of the book and we know we get the victory. So thank you for watching over us. Be with us as we finish up this night. Help us get in the rest we need so we can get up tomorrow and have another day of serving and honor and glorify your holy name. We love you and thank you for everything. And say this prayer in your wonderful son, in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank y'all. I just about lost my voice. I better drink some water or something, because I got to preach again tomorrow night, because we got the Lost Sheep Ministry. And any of my Lost Sheep people watching, we will be meeting tomorrow night, God willing, 6 o'clock. If you're in Dixon, I'll be down to pick you up. Let me know if you need a ride. And of course, as always, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for coming supporting me, and I pray you just continue to do what you need to do so you got the food for the Lord as well. So I love y'all. God willing, next Monday we'll be back, get back into the book of Judges. But until then, remember to always watch your back and pray. Peace.